In a world where people use cheat abilities to relax, one guy is dreaming about living the ultimate life and doing exactly as he pleases. Suddenly, the gray-haired noble screams at Toa that he hereby banishes him from the house of Kashyyyk. The gray-haired noble tells Toa that since he's the new family head, Toa is no longer needed and needs to get out now, which leaves this reincarnated nobleman free to do as he pleases. Toa is completely shocked and yells out in surprise, which is wild because he's actually a battle-hardened swordsman who's just been looking for a slow life. He gets a very serious and focused look in his eyes as he processes what just happened. Walking through the street, he introduces himself as Toa and explains that he literally just lost his family name a moment ago. Looking out over the city, Toa asks for a moment to briefly share his story. He reveals he is someone reincarnated from another world, where he grew up in a single-mother household and faced many hardships. As a result of those struggles, he unfortunately died from overwork at the young age of 22. The next time he opened his eyes, he had been reborn into this world and wondered where he could possibly be. Since he was born into a wealthy family, he thought he was super lucky and was going to take it easy in this life, or so he hoped. But his dreams of a lazy life hit a wall when the gray-haired tutor tells Master Toa that he truly has no talent for swordsmanship or magic, leaving the boy totally confused. The housemaids whisper that compared to his eldest brother Gras, Toa is in a sorry state, which just leaves him confused. He starts to get frustrated, wondering if a cheat ability is mandatory for reincarnation, since he was supposed to live the easy life. As Toa grows up, he falls behind and becomes isolated in the house, while his once close brother Gras gradually distances himself too. Before he knows it, life gets even harder after his mother's death and the official designation of the successor. To avoid a succession dispute, Toa is eventually sent away to a remote fortress. He looks completely drained and pale as he ends up in a gloomy place with nothing but dead animals around him. Upon arriving at the fortress, Toa is greeted by a group of incredibly muscular warriors who spend their time flexing and showing off their strength. One of the fighters looks down at the small boy and asks if this kid is really supposed to be their newest recruit. The warriors warn him that if he doesn't want to die, he needs to fight like his life depends on it, because they're not rich enough to support any weaklings. Toa looks completely shocked by the harsh reality of his situation, while the person in front of him continues to stare him down. Toa starts running with a look of pure focus, shouting that there's no way he's going to die in a place like this, because he is never giving up on his dream of a slow life in another world. Toa begins a painful training montage where he shakes, while holding a heavy sword, flies backward off a wooden training dummy, and tries to practice magic with a tall instructor. Toa explains how his days from then on were filled with harsh training from his masters. For 10 years, he protected the border from waves of monsters at the remote fortress, and today, for the first time since he was cast out, he has been summoned back to his family home. He never expected the first words out of their mouths to be a declaration of disownment, which really gets on his nerves. He's pretty annoyed because, in another world, banishment is supposed to come with a territory. From today on, Toa is officially a commoner, but he knows moping about won't help, so he recalls how he threw all the money he had at Gras. When Gras asks about his upbringing costs until now, Toa says he'll pay him back with interest, making Gras wonder if Toa really thinks he earned that much money. Toa walks away from his family home and thinks he should have at least stayed for lunch. He knows going back to the fortress will cost travel money, so he realizes he first needs to find something to earn some pocket money. He looks up at a sign and thinks to himself, the Adventurers Guild. He considers it because in this world, being an adventurer is a properly recognized profession. He knows the danger is high, but so is the pay. It's an option he wouldn't have considered 10 years ago, when he was weak, but he's far stronger now. Toa knows he is definitely not the same guy he used to be after all his hard work. He thinks back to being trained by his masters at the fortress, like the red-haired master and the blonde master who pushed him to his limits. Because of them, and the guidance of the old master and the long-haired master, he truly has the strength of a warrior now. His plan is to earn some cash quickly, so he can finally enjoy the slow life he has always wanted. But first, he realizes he should change out of these stiff, noble clothes before heading over to the guild. Once he is dressed properly, Toa enters the building and hopes that the counter in front of him is the reception desk. Toa asks to register as an adventurer, and the blonde receptionist tells him to please wait just a moment. Toa notices someone is ahead of him and watches two female adventurers talking at the counter. The red-haired adventurer tries to cheer up her friend, saying she will be fine if she just does what she always does. The bob-haired healer looks really nervous though, wondering what if she fails, especially today. Noticing her staff, Toa thinks to himself that it is quite rare to run into a healer. The bob-haired healer suddenly blinks and realizes that Toa is standing right there watching them. The bob-haired healer, Nika, looks over and says she is so sorry for causing such a big commotion. She apologizes again, but Toa quickly waves his hands and tells her it is totally fine. Toa asks if the two of them are registering as adventurers too, and Grasa confirms that they have their big exam coming up right after this. The red-haired adventurer, Grasa, mentions that Nika is just so nervous right now, though Nika asks if Grasa isn't feeling a bit shaky herself. Toa offers to teach them a charm to calm their nerves, explaining that they should write a specific character on their palm 10 times and then swallow it. Grasa realizes that the charm character Toa showed them. Nika realizes that even when she's feeling anxious and alone, just remembering someone important makes her feel alright. Seeing the positive effect of Toa's advice, Nika and Grasa both start laughing together. Grasa mentions that all her extra tension has finally melted away, and Toa says he's honored he could be of any help. The guild receptionist calls for the two taking the exam to come her way, and Grasa quickly shouts back that they're ready. Toa waves and wishes them good luck, and the girls yell back a huge thank you as they head off. Toa watches them go and thinks to himself that those two are really close friends. Toa watches the girls leave and thinks those two look like they'll do well as adventurers from here on out. Now it's finally his turn, and the guild receptionist thanks him for waiting while asking if he's here for his registration. She tells him to please write his name and register his fingerprint on the card, and Toa says he's got it. He realizes he can't exactly use the name cash sheet after all, so he decides his registered name will just be Toa. She tells him his provisional registration is complete and to keep the card for identification, and when he asks about it, she says full registration is granted after the exam tomorrow. Toa asks if he really can't take the exam today, but she tells him the two who were just here took the last slots for the day. Toa says he sees how it is and tells the lady he will just come back tomorrow. He heads out of the building to go find a spot to sleep. By the time the next morning rolls around, Toa arrives back at the guild and is a bit surprised. He looks around and realizes there are already quite a few people gathered there for the exam. The guild receptionist calls out to the crowd, explaining that they are calling everyone in order and asking them to wait just a moment. Suddenly, someone calls out for Mr. Toa from the middle of the noisy crowd, catching him off guard. He is told to skip the second floor and head to classroom 10 on the third floor, and as he walks down the hall, he notes how quiet it is. Toa peeks into the room and wonders if this place is a bit messy for an exam hall, since it looks more like a storage closet. From the shadows, a person with pointed ears and a wide smile tells him it's nice to meet him. The small person introduces themselves as Theo and says they will be in charge of his exam. Theo asks Toa if he finds them unusual, being an elf in a town like this, which makes Toa quickly say he's sorry. Theo says it's quite alright because it must certainly be rare to see their kind in a human city, then tells him to follow this way. As they walk through a messy room full of crates, Toa wonders what kind of exam is held in a storeroom like this. Toa starts to worry that it could be a written exam and thinks he might be in a bit of trouble. Theo suddenly turns around and asks if he is Mr. Toa, correct? Toa confirms that's right, while the examiner just looks at him with a mysterious little smile. Theo declares, it is finally time to begin the exam, as a massive magic circle glows brightly behind him. A sudden flash of light fills the room, and the scenery instantly shifts into a wide, open field. Stunned by the change, Toa asks if Theo really created this entire exam site using spatial magic. Theo is surprised that Toa is familiar with it and mentions that very few people can use that magic these days, even among elves. Looking over his shoulder, Toa asks if the group of people walking up are meant to be the examiners. The mean-looking examiners stare him down and mockingly tell Toa that he does not exactly look the part. The freckled woman is surprised that Toa is so quick on the uptake, but the spiky-haired guy just laughs and says Toa has a pretty dopey-looking face. The spiky-haired guy smirks and tells Toa that if he's going to hold a grudge, he should hold it against his own big brother. Toa looks on seriously, thinking back to the exact moment he first got suspicious of this whole setup. The short elf girl remarks that being a noble sure is tough, especially since Theo can't feel at ease unless he kills his own flesh and blood brother. Toa gives a knowing smile, thinking that his brother works way too fast, and realizing these guys aren't actually examiners at all. Looking at the group, he knows his brother sent them to get rid of him because he considers Toa a destabilizing element. Toa looks at the group and thinks it's quite a sight, realizing they are actually assassins sent to kill him. He adds that he doesn't have any lingering attachment to the nobility anymore. Anyway, the short elf girl tells him it has nothing to do with his brother, saying a younger brother seizing the head of the family by force is a pretty common story. She gives a nasty grin and tells him to just die quietly. Toa lets out a breath as he pulls out both a sword and a staff to prepare for the fight. Seeing this, the spiky-haired guy mocks him, asking if he's getting full of himself for wielding both a sword and a staff. The freckled woman takes one look at Toa's gear and smirks, saying what a ridiculous outfit it is. Toa just tightens his grip on his weapon and tells her thanks for the concern, but it's right back at her. Looking really serious now, Toa points his blade and tells anyone who wants to die to just come at him. The short elf girl thinks he is all bark and laughs it off, telling him that it's time to die. She just gives a little humph, clearly thinking she has the upper hand here. Activating her inferno magic, the short elf girl screams for him to burn to ashes as she blasts him with a wave of flames. The freckled assassin woman charges in with a confident grin, closing the distance while Toa stands ready with his staff. Toa remains calm and tells her she is quite skilled as he reaches for a blade to prepare for the clash. Out of nowhere, the spiky-haired assassin jumps into the fray and yells that it is time to go. Toa realizes they are a well-balanced party with both long-range and short-range fighters, and they are coordinating perfectly to take him down no matter which way he moves. He quickly calls out for defense magic, raising his staff to create a shield against the heavy incoming pressure. But the freckled assassin woman lunges from the side and shouts that he fell for it, claiming his side is now wide open. Toa leans in close and taunts the freckled assassin woman, telling her that she is actually the one who fell for it. He follows up with a powerful blow, catching her completely off guard and sending her reeling back. Seeing their teammate go down, the spiky-haired assassin panics and yells at the others to suppress him quickly. The short elf girl is stunned as she realizes Toa is actually using body enhancement magic to boost his physical stats. The bald assassin tries to step in and stop him by swinging a massive spiked morning star on a heavy chain. Toa stands his ground with a calm aura surrounding him, while the spiky-haired assassin watches on, clearly frustrated that they can't land a hit. Toa stands his ground as several powerful attacks fly his way, forcing him to stay on his toes. He just clicks his tongue, looking more bothered than scared by the effort they're putting in. The short elf girl screams for the group to go right now, and both the bald and spiky-haired assassins rush in to try and trap him. But Toa is much too fast, and with one swift motion, he swings his sword and completely shuts down their team attack. Realizing they're in trouble, the short elf girl starts shouting out an inferno spell to blast him away. Toa is way ahead of her though, telling her she's too slow, as he uses his own inferno magic to counter her. A loud scream echoes through the air as the counterattack hits home. The short elf girl is left coughing on the ground, surrounded by steam from her fallen allies. She is completely shocked and yells out to know what is going on, because she thought Toa was supposed to be a total failure. Toa steps forward and mentions how she was just mocking him earlier, but explains that his fighting style actually comes from the frontier fort. He continues by saying he actually specializes in chaotic fights where he has to take on many enemies at once. With a smug smile, Toa says he is sorry, but he is definitely not a failure. Toa explains that he was thoroughly drilled in both magic and swordsmanship for 10 years by the heroes of a frontier fort. The short elf girl warns him not to get cocky because they are inside her spatial magic, and says if she closes it, he will be caught up with her. The short elf girl is suddenly confused and asks why her magic is being repelled, while Toa just casually says it is his bad. Toa admits he thought he would borrow this space for a bit, so he just overwrote it while they were fighting. The short elf girl is stunned that he can overwrite a spell formula mid-battle, watching him walk right up to her. Getting right in her face, Toa suggests they should talk for a little while. The bald guild master suddenly bursts into the room, shouting and asking what is going on. Toa stands over the short elf girl, who is tied up in glowing magic chains, and he starts to explain the situation. Looking around in total shock, the bald guild master can't believe what he's seeing. He focuses on Toa and asks the young man who he actually is. It's a huge shock for him to realize that someone named Theo was actually involved in assassination work. He looks down at the short elf girl and tells her that using the guild as a cover for such dirty work is just awful. The guild master looks at Toa and tells him that thanks to him, they were able to catch them, and he is truly grateful. After a moment of silence, the guild master says that as guild master, he will deal with this matter severely. Toa tells him he is sorry, but he needs him to wait here as a witness until the military police arrive. Toa then looks the man in the eye and asks the guildmaster to let him give him one good piece of advice. While a massive magic circle lights up the sky, Toa smiles and warns that lies are the beginning of ruin. The guildmaster is completely caught off guard by the sudden power and yells, "What?" in total shock. The guildmaster loses his cool and screams for everyone to wait for the signal before activating it. Toa suddenly steps up from behind and tells the shocked man that he is actually the one who did it. The guildmaster is stunned that Toa can use magic that is difficult even for elves, while Toa mentions how he never expected a capital's guildmaster to be in on this, especially since he must have such a good income. Toa tells him he is totally rotten for resorting to illegal underworld work just because he wanted even more money. He starts looking back on his time spent at the frontier fort where he used to be. He remembers how everyone there was truly dedicated and fighting for the sake of someone standing behind them. Toa thinks back to his old friends telling him that he is still young and it would be a total waste for him to bury his bones in a place like that. They were firm about it, telling him that they were more than enough to handle the defense of the area on their own. The frontier warriors wave him off and tell him to go on, so he can enjoy that slow life of his to the fullest. Coming back to the present, Toa gets a scary look in his eyes and tells these jerks that they have defiled the legacy of that fight. The guildmaster starts to panic, pointing his finger and shouting to ask if Toa is really going to kill them right here. Toa just shrugs it off with a casual smile, saying that sounds like too much trouble, and besides, he has a little errand to run. Toa looks them in the eye and tells them he'll be back in 1 hour. He tells the bald official to choose just one representative by then, giving them a chance to be judged by the law and letting them decide who it is however they like. The elf guy is shocked that something came undone, while someone nearby snaps and calls him a jerk. The elf guy screams for everyone not to attack, because if the enemy erases this entire space, they will all die. He panics and asks what they should do instead, but then he spots something and gasps. Realizing they are cornered, the elf guy shouts that they have no other choice and prepares to use his magic. Toa says it is finally time to deal with the rest of the business and steps through a magical portal. He suddenly shows up in a room and casually says, "Yo," and asks if it is a nice night, which makes the man at the desk yell out Toa's name in total shock. The man stands up and asks why he is there, but Toa just asks him back why he thinks that is. Looking really annoyed, Toa's brother realizes that the fools he sent must have failed their mission. Toa points out that he tried to kill him and asks his brother if he is prepared to be killed too. Facing the end, Toa's brother simply says, "Of course," and accepts his fate. Toa is actually pretty surprised by his brother's reaction and just lets out a soft "whoa" while looking at him. Toa's brother says that if Toa plans to kill him and take over the family, he won't stop him, even suggesting he talk to the head butler about etiquette so he doesn't have any problems. Toa just sighs and tells him that he's really the only one who can serve as the head of this family. He makes it very clear that he has absolutely no interest in becoming a noble. Toa explains he only came there to make a promise, which leaves Toa's brother sounding confused as he repeats, "A promise?" Toa warns him that from now on, he better not lay a hand on him, because for right now, he is just an adventurer. The head of the Kashyyyk family looks away and insists he'll do as he pleases. After a brief silence, the head of the Kashyyyk family finally says he understood and gives Toa his promise. Toa says thank you to his brother, but quickly catches himself and calls him the head of the Kashyyyk family instead. As he walks away through the dark streets, Toa starts to regret that he didn't at least swipe some food or something before leaving. Toa stretches and asks himself when he is ever going to get his dream slow life, though he keeps sweeping away obstacles and going his own way. The scene shifts to the bright morning light on Guild Headquarters Street in the royal capital of the Pleasol Kingdom. Toa takes a firm step forward as he officially starts his journey through the city. This is 18-year-old Toa, the former second son of the Kashyyyk family who is finally free. As he walks past the busy market stalls, he realizes just how hungry he is. He thinks back to how after meeting his brother Glass last night, he went back to the spatial magic area and handed Theo, who had survived, over to the military police. Because of everything that happened, he never got a chance to eat or find a room, so he actually had to sleep outside. Exhausted and starving, he eventually finds himself standing right in front of the local guild building. Toa arrives at the guild to find a crowd of people worried about what will happen with the exam results after yesterday's uproar. Looking at the crowd, Toa wonders why everyone is so upset and notices that it is awfully noisy today. Anxious adventurers are panicking and asking what happens now that the guild is closed, yelling that they never heard about a closure and asking about the exams they took yesterday. The angry swordsman shouts that he can't have the place suddenly closed because he really needs his daily wages to get by. The guild receptionist tries to explain that the closure is for the investigation of last night's incident, but she tells the man she can't say anything more than that. Toa watches the scene and thinks it is total chaos, though he admits he guesses that figures after everything that happened. Toa realizes that the guildmaster is already gone. He remembers how when he dragged out the survivor, he confirmed they were dead. Out of nowhere, a loud shout for attention really startles Toa. A guild official with a ponytail slams his hand down and yells that the guild will be closed for a while, for a large-scale organizational restructuring. He adds that furthermore, all of yesterday's examinees are now considered to have passed. The official tells everyone that during the closure, requests mediated by neighboring guilds will be posted for them to check individually before he walks away. The announcer yells, "That is all," and finishes his speech before heading back inside. Toa thinks it was pretty haphazard, wondering if that was the vice guildmaster just now, and sighs about what a mess it all is. Anyway, he realizes he needs to go earn today's meal money. Now that he's finally an adventurer in name and reality, Toa begins to see the posted requests. He's disappointed to find that the only decent paying ones are all requests that refuse solo adventurers. Toa looks at a simple gathering job and tells himself there is no point in taking a request this easy. Toa remembers how the receptionist said she'd recommend forming a party, but now he feels like it's more mandatory than just a suggestion. Looking at the busy guild hall, he honestly thinks finding a teammate is going to be tough given his current situation. His stomach lets out a loud growl, making him worry that he might have to give up on eating today. He thinks that if he has to team up with someone anyway, he wants it to be like those girls he saw the day before yesterday. Getting a bit distracted, Toa admits he'd really like a party with a cute girl. Out of nowhere, someone shouts about wanting to try again, making Toa turn around with a surprised, "Oh?" Just as someone mentions her name, Nika shows up, and they ask if she's the one they were talking about. Out of nowhere, the scarred adventurer starts shouting that a healer, who can't even use a heal spell, is totally useless. The hooded adventurer joins in on the shouting and asks Nika if she is trying to trick them. The scarred adventurer grabs Nika's outfit and yells that calling herself a healer when she can't even use basic magic is a total scam. Nika insists that she really is a healer and begs for one more chance, while Toa watches the drama from the side. She closes her eyes as hard as she can and shouts for a heal spell to work. Nika focuses her power, and a bright magic circle finally starts to form right in front of her. Out of nowhere, the circle starts to spark and break, leaving Nika completely shocked by what is happening. She holds herself and asks why this is happening again, while Toa stands back and keeps a sharp eye on her. Toa doesn't say a word, but he is clearly noticing something strange about her situation. He realizes it is as if her magic power is scattering midway, like it is being blocked by something else. To him, it really looks like the whole spell formula construction is just breaking down before it can even finish. Seeing the failed spell, the scarred adventurer yells out to everyone that he told them she couldn't do it. Nika is completely heartbroken and can only whisper no, wondering why this keeps happening to her. The scarred adventurer yells at her to get over here and says he is turning her in to the military police. Caught by surprise, Nika lets out a scared eek. As she is pulled away, Nika begs them to wait and tries to explain that she really tried her best. Suddenly, Toa steps in and says, "Excuse me," apologizing for interrupting their little dispute. The angry party leader turns around and snaps at Toa, asking him what he wants. Toa keeps a smile on his face and casually tells the guy that violence against a girl is just not cool. The jerk doesn't want to hear it and yells at Toa to mind his own business. Toa tells him it actually does concern him, since he's an acquaintance of Nika's, and he starts to mention what the cause of the problem is. He looks closely at the pendant Nika is wearing and notes that she definitely wasn't wearing it yesterday. Toa suggests having Nika try her magic one more time, promising that then everyone will finally understand what's really going on. The angry party leader is totally confused and yells out, asking what Toa is even talking about and why he is butting in all of a sudden. He points a finger and asks why Toa is siding with a scammer like that, even wondering if the two of them are in cahoots. The angry party leader snaps that he should just hand her over quickly, while the hooded woman watches and wonders if he is the head of the group. Toa clicks his tongue because he realizes he stood out too much and is drawing a crowd. The angry party leader gives up and tells Toa to do what he wants, so Toa just gives a breezy wave and says thanks. Toa turns to Nika and says sorry for butting in suddenly, but then he asks if she can try her magic one more time, even though she is really unsure about it. Nika can barely find her voice, just whispering a shaky "I" as she looks down in doubt. It is not surprising at all that she has completely lost her confidence after everything that happened. Toa suddenly calls out Nika's name to get her to look at him. Nika is totally shocked by what she is seeing right in front of her. She stammers, asking what he is doing, but Toa tells her to try the healing magic one more time and heal something for him, even though she tries to protest. Toa gives her a reassuring smile and says it is okay, telling her to just believe. Toa tells Nika that before she uses her magic, she needs to take off that necklace, and he encourages her by saying he knows she can do it. Nika looks a little surprised by the request, but she tells Toa that she understands. Getting ready to try one more time, she says, "Here I go." She places her hand over the injury and says heal as a glowing magic circle appears. Looking down at the results, she's totally shocked and can't believe it's actually healed. Toa asks the guy if he sees how it healed without a problem, and points out that she wasn't lying. The red-haired adventurer demands to know why she couldn't heal earlier, so Toa shows him the necklace, and says it's because of this thing. Staring at the pendant, Toa reveals that this is actually a cursed tool. He explains that it had the effect of disrupting magic activation, and asks them not to hand Nika over to the military police, since she's a victim too. The red-haired adventurer just clicks his tongue in frustration as he walks away from them. Nika looks up at Toa, clearly wanting to say something, but she's a bit hesitant. Toa glances around and says it's too noisy here, wanting to find a better place to talk. Toa suggests they head outside to find a quiet place to talk. Once they are away from the crowd, Nika thanks him so much for helping her out. Toa just smiles and brushes it off, saying it is fine, and that he just stuck his nose in on his own. Nika gets a bit emotional, thinking about what would have happened if Toa hadn't been there, so he tells her to calm down. Toa then changes the subject to something else. He shows her the necklace, and asks her where exactly she got it from. Nika explains that the necklace was actually a present from someone named Grassa. She recalls Grassa saying they should get matching ones to commemorate coming to the royal capital. Suddenly, Nika realizes that if this is a cursed tool, then Grassa must be in trouble too. Toa thinks for a moment and remembers Grassa as the girl who was next to Nika at the reception desk the day before yesterday. Nika starts to tear up as she wonders what she should do, saying she has to find Grassa right away. Seeing how desperate she is, Toa promises that he will help too. Toa gives a confident smile and suggests they form a party, saying this must be fate. Feeling incredibly grateful for his help, Nika gives him a big thank you. As she thinks about how things went wrong, she starts to sweat and asks herself why this happened. Deep in a cave, Grassa cries out Nika's name and says she might not make it back alive, while the blonde warrior stands guard against whatever approaches them in their dire straits. Out of nowhere, a massive clawed foot slams down onto the ground with a heavy thud. It turns out the newly formed party's first job is a rescue mission, and they race off on a giant beast that has Nika feeling totally dizzy. Toa tells Nika to hold on tight, and she nervously replies yes as they speed along. They are heading to the forested area east of the royal capital to find her friend. Toa thinks to himself that this is a perk of the job, while Nika looks totally dizzy from the fast ride. Back at the guild, they found out that Grassa now belongs to a party called Windfang. It turns out Windfang is a solid D-rank party, led by a woman named Edra. They apparently went to investigate a dungeon in the forest, which is exactly where Toa and Nika are racing now. Toa looks out at the distance and notes to himself that he can see the forest now. He calls out to Nika to get her attention, and she quickly answers him with a nervous yes. Toa gets serious and warns her that the forest they are heading to is full of dangerous monsters, so she needs to keep that in mind. Nika gives him a brave smile and says she is totally fine because she doesn't mind the danger at all if it is for Grassa's sake. Toa agrees and says he thinks it is a really happy thing when someone comes to rescue you during a tough time. He thinks back to when he was a kid and snuck out of the house only to get lost, and he remembers how his brother, Grassa, was the one who came to find him. Toa cuts off his trip down memory lane, thinking to himself that his old story has no relevance right now. Suddenly, Nika points out something ahead, and Toa looks over with a curious hum. A wagon rushes past, and Toa figures it is an adventurer who might be on their way back to the royal capital. He watches them speed away, noticing that they seem to be in an awful hurry for some reason. Toa wonders why they were in such a panic, noting that judging by the direction, they seem to have come from the forest. Since they just came from the forest, he figures something might have happened and tells Nika they need to stay sharp. Toa and Nika ride through the dense woods as they get deeper into the forest toward the dungeon. Toa notices it is awfully quiet, with the birdsong sounding distant, and says they should be arriving soon. He knows a dungeon is a den of monsters, and normal creatures won't come near because they fear that presence. Toa tells Nika they are almost at the destination and suggests they hop off the horse for a moment. He explains they can't leave a borrowed horse near the dungeon, and Nika gives him a quick okay. Getting ready for whatever is ahead, Toa uses his mana detection to scout the area. Toa finds what he is looking for and notices someone is nearby, wondering if they might be part of Edra's group. Toa looks back and tells Nika to follow him this way. Nika is super impressed by Toa's mana detection skills, saying it is amazing how he even knows exactly where the dungeon is. Toa explains that dungeons have really thick mana, which makes them easy to spot because it all gathers in one place. Toa mentions there is one person nearby. They might be able to ask about Grassa, and Nika excitedly asks if that is true. They arrive at the dark entrance of the dungeon, where they spot a lone person sitting quietly by the cave. The sitting adventurer looks over his shoulder and asks Toa if he is a member of the Windfang party. He looks pretty shaken as he leans against the wall, asking if they are a rescue party. Toa tells him no and asks what happened to leave him in such a state. The sitting adventurer realizes help hasn't arrived yet and says he's sorry, but they don't have any time for talking right now. Toa mentions they are friends of Grassa's, which leaves the sitting adventurer totally shocked. Realizing they have a connection, the sitting adventurer says he sees they are looking for Grassa. The sitting adventurer explains that she is currently inside the dungeon with their leader. Nika is shocked by the news and asks if Grassa is really inside. Toa mentions that this dungeon was supposed to be not that difficult and asks if something happened. The sitting adventurer tells them they actually discovered a new route during their exploration that was hidden behind a boulder. He describes how the floor collapsed and the two of them were swallowed up, making Nika cry out in horror. Toa asks if the man knows where they are while preparing a search magic circle, which is a spell that tracks the mana of a designated target. Nika is really struggling because she was able to track them partway, but now she has lost the trail. Nika shouts that they have to go help, but the glasses guy tells her she can't because they are in an unknown area, not even recognized by the guild. He explains that the others have gone to the royal capital to request a rescue party, so they all need to wait here too. Nika can't believe it and cries out that Grassa is surely waiting for help. The glasses guy says he understands how she feels and wants to go too, but even for an A-rank party, it's really dangerous. He warns her that for rookies like them to go recklessly into a place like that is suicide, so they have no choice but to wait. Nika clenches her clothes, looking completely heartbroken and worried about her missing friend. Even the glasses guy admits that just sitting around and waiting isn't really his style. That's when Toa steps forward and firmly says he'll go. Toa explains they need to move before it's too late, and Nika adds that she really wants to do her best. Toa says if he doesn't act now, he'll regret it, so Nika shouts that she's going too. She tells Toa she won't let him do anything reckless alone because, besides everything else, she's Grassa's best friend. Toa looks over at her and simply calls out Nika's name. Nika gives him a warm smile and blushes as she reminds him that they are a party, after all. She gets even more worked up and declares that Mr. Toa and she are one in body and spirit. Hearing her determination, the glasses guy realizes there is no changing their minds and says it is understood. Toa decides he is taking this child along too, and tells everyone he won't do anything reckless. The glasses guy finally gives in and says fine, though he makes sure to mention for the record that he did try to stop Toa. The glasses-wearing man offers a partial memo mapping the interior, but Nika wonders if that's okay since it's the fruit of his labor. He tells them it's not the time to worry about that, and Toa thanks him very much for the help. Toa says it's time to go, and they head into the darkness to go get Grassa and the others. Looking on, the glasses-wearing man thinks about that young man and how his eyes could only read a fraction of Toa's tremendous amount of mana. He thinks he probably should have stopped them by force, but he decides to hope against hope and begs them to save their leader. Deep inside the cave, Grassa is crying and gasping for air as she struggles to hold on. Grassa and Nika watch as a group of small monsters scurry away into the dark, and Grassa clicks her tongue in frustration. Looking really annoyed, Nika calls the monsters persistent pests. Nika tells Grassa to get back as she rushes forward to take the lead. Nika delivers a massive high kick that sends one of the monsters flying. She lets out a shout of, "Whoa," as she keeps up her attack. With a determined look on her face, Nika swings her weapon with everything she's got. Deep in the dark cave, Edra stands her ground as she gets surrounded by a whole bunch of monsters. She grips her weapon tight and grits her teeth, realizing that the enemies just keep coming one after another. Watching the battle from behind a large rock, Grassa can only worry and call out Edra's name. Suddenly, Grassa spots something unexpected in the cave wall and asks herself if it's a hole. She sees an upward slope leading somewhere and wonders if the way out could actually be right above them. As bits of dirt fall from the ceiling, Grassa looks up at the dark opening and calls out to Edra again. Suddenly, a massive, heavy foot slams onto the ground with a loud thud. Hearing the noise, Nika quickly spins around to see what is coming up behind her. She looks totally shocked as she stares up at the huge shadow. A giant, muscular, bull-headed monster stands right in front of her, towering over her whole body. The monster's eyes glow as it lets out a hot, steaming breath from its nose. As the massive creature looms over her, Nika can't help but let out a scared eep from the shock. Nika screams out Grassa's name, clearly terrified for her friend. Desperate to help, Nika charges forward and yells at everyone to get out of her way. She races toward the dark opening of the cave where the massive bull monster is standing over someone on the ground. With her eyes fixed on her goal, Nika keeps moving as fast as she can. Suddenly, the small monster leaps onto her back and yanks on her ponytail, leaving Nika completely shocked. The small monster clings to her and starts attacking, forcing a painful scream from Nika as she struggles. Nika looks on in total horror as she is pinned down and completely surrounded by those nasty little monsters. Her hand reaches out desperately against the ground, but she is quickly being overwhelmed by the attack. Looking up with tears in her eyes, Nika is in total shock and calls out for Edra, saying there is no way this is happening. Suddenly, a bright magic circle appears out of nowhere and blasts right through the debris with a massive explosion. Nika's face turns red and she starts to cry as a mysterious voice suddenly apologizes for being late. The light-haired young man shows up with a confident smirk and tells her he has come to save her, acting like a dazzling light piercing through her despair. Toa eyes the Tauros in front of him, wondering how he'll handle a situation where a single misjudgment could be fatal. The guild ranks this beast as a B rank, but it has super high physical abilities that make it a real threat. It's a dangerous monster that could even wipe out an A rank party if they happen to let their guard down. Seeing him stand his ground, the short-haired healer calls out to Mr. Toa. Toa doesn't miss a beat, as he tells Nika to take her and fall back, which clearly catches the ponytail girl off guard. He knows there is no time to take it easy, especially with a group of monsters already swarming the girl on the ground. Looking at the mess on the ground, Toa knows he has to cast a healing spell quickly because of the amount of blood he sees. He raises his magic staff into the air and realizes there is something he has to do first. He calls out for light arrow magic, and bright beams of energy shoot out toward the crowd of monsters. The arrows hit their marks with a series of loud bangs, knocking the little creatures back. Since the goblins are taken care of, Toa says that next, they are going to take down the Tauros. He stands his ground right in front of the massive beast, holding his staff ready for the real fight to begin. The massive Tauros lunges forward with a scary look in its eyes, ready to attack. Toa stays totally calm and shouts, "Earth magic," as a glowing circle appears above his staff. Suddenly, two huge stone walls slam into the beast from both sides, pinning it right in place. Caught completely off guard by the heavy stone, the Tauros is trapped and can only let out a confused "goo?" Seeing his chance, Toa jumps high into the air to get into the perfect position for a final strike. He comes crashing down and drives his sword straight through the monster's head, finishing the B-rank beast for good. The bull monster lets out a loud "bug-ya" as it gets struck down. Toa wastes no time and shouts, "Wind blade magic," to finish the job. The massive beast screams, "Bug-ya!" as the powerful wind slashes right through it. Toa says whoa as he uses a magical shield to protect himself from the monster's mess. Standing firm in the cave, Toa holds a glowing magic circle and stays on guard. The ponytail girl and the long-haired healer can only watch in shock and let out a soft ah. Grassa is in total shock, thinking about how Toa just took down a huge monster like that in an instant. Toa stays alert and confirms for himself that there are no signs of monsters nearby. Looking over her friend, the short-haired girl in the hoodie mentions that it doesn't look like Grassa has any major injuries. They find a woman lying face down on the ground, and Toa knows that healing her is the top priority. Toa asks if this person is definitely Edra, and Grassa nervously tells him yes. Toa begins his magic, realizing this is the leader of Windfang, and wondering how she managed to protect Grassa all by herself until now. Toa gets to work right away and casts advanced recovery magic to save Edra. The healing light glows over the wound as Toa tries his best to patch her up. Toa looks concerned and says he managed to stop the bleeding, but unfortunately, it won't close up completely. He remembers his training, thinking about how even the mentor who taught him recovery magic at the fortress said that magic to regenerate lost limbs is on a whole other level. He thinks if only he had the talent to do more, but then tells himself he is just wishing for something he doesn't have. Toa looks frustrated, knowing that with an injury like this, a sword is no longer an option for her. The ponytailed adventurer calls out to Toa, sounding really worried about what's happened to Edra. Toa reassures her that he's stopped the bleeding and says his life shouldn't be in danger anymore. However, he has to share the grim detail that his fingers were chewed off by goblins. Toa explains that while he might manage in daily life, he won't be able to fight, leaving the ponytailed adventurer to whisper, "No way," in total shock. Toa tells the group they can regret this later, but first, they need to get back to the surface. The ponytailed adventurer tries to pull herself together and wipes the tears from her eyes so they can move on. With the rescue complete, the group agrees it is finally time to head home quickly. Toa asks Nika if she can check the Taurus for a magic stone, which leaves Nika wondering about the stone. Toa explains that it would be a real pain if the dungeon ended up absorbing the stone before they could get it. Toa asks Grassa to help him get Edra onto his back so he can carry him, and she tells him it's no problem at all. As they start to move out, Grassa seems like she has something on her mind, but she just hesitates with a quiet Toa introduces himself and mentions he is in a party with Nika, so Grassa tells him she sees and thanks him again for saving her. Toa uses his magic to bring out an item while saying "and here," leaving everyone else making sounds of total surprise. Grasa just stands there in silence for a moment, looking down as she processes everything that has happened. Toa decides he will carry Adora on his back and asks Grasa to support him from behind, which she agrees to immediately. Nika holds up a crystal and asks Toa if this is the magic stone, and he confirms that's the one, and thanks her for finding it. Toa explains that if they turn the magic stone into the guild, they will get money, and he wants to put it toward Adora's medical expenses. With their plan settled, the group begins the walk back through the cave to get the injured party leader the help he needs. The guy with glasses is surprised and says that he is responding as a magic circle starts to glow. He stands alone at the entrance of the dark cave, waiting for the rest of the group to emerge. One of the girls shouts that he is back as Toa finally walks out of the cave with the leader on his shoulder. Seeing that they are safe, the guy with glasses lets out a sigh of relief and says thank goodness. After checking on the leader, the guy with glasses tells the group that his life shouldn't be in any danger. He suggests they put the leader down for now, noticing that he must be really heavy to carry. Toa starts using his powers, and a bright magic circle appears over the leader's body as he begins the treatment. Red Roar is really impressed and tells Toa it's amazing that he can use such high-level healing magic without even being a healer. Toa just gives a small smile and explains that his masters are the ones who drilled those skills into him. Grasa looks pretty upset and starts to speak up, trying to apologize to Red Roar for everything that happened. Red Roar doesn't let her finish, though, and firmly tells Grasa that no apologies are needed. He then points out that you see a lot of colleagues retire in this job and asks her what she thinks is the most common reason adventurers end up leaving. Toa asks if it's because they can't fight anymore due to an injury or age. Red Roar tells him that no, it's actually when they lose their lives. Red Roar looks at a hand missing some fingers and says that being able to retire without losing your life is something he thinks is a fortunate thing. Grasa stands there looking down and clutching her chest as the atmosphere turns heavy. Feeling really bad about the situation, Grasa starts to sweat and says it's her fault. Nika looks over at her crying friend and softly calls out to Grasa. She has a very serious and determined look in her eyes as she watches what is happening. Taking a quiet moment to focus on what she needs to do, Nika closes her eyes and prepares herself. She holds her hands out and says she is going to use some basic healing magic. Suddenly, Nika looks completely caught off guard and gets really flustered. The young man with the cowlick calls out Nika's name, while the story says Adora's wound would be a forever regret for Grasa, and Nika wants to save her from that, but things are about to change. The young man with the cowlick tells Nika that high-level healing magic couldn't fix it, and that's just the reality of the situation. Nika refuses to give up, shaking her head and saying no over and over as she tries to keep her magic steady. She is clearly pushing her limits, gasping for breath, while her eyes stay locked on the task at hand. The man with glasses tells her that's enough, warning her that she is going to collapse if she tries to do any more. Grasa watches in total shock and worry, softly calling out Nika's name as she sees her friend struggling. Despite the danger, Nika looks determined and says that for Grasa's sake, she simply can't stop now. The group sits in a heavy silence while Nika stays focused on her task in the middle of the clearing. The young man with the cowlick looks worried as he warns her that completely depleting her magic power is life-threatening. He says that if things get dangerous, he's forcing her to stop, and he starts using magic detection to see exactly what's happening. He realizes the flow of magic power is really strange compared to normal healing magic. He watches in awe as the magic power starts gathering way beyond the wound itself. He is totally confused because what she's using should be a basic spell, only capable of healing cuts, but it's clearly doing much more. Krenu watches in total shock as he sees the lost bits of the wound actually starting to grow back, wondering how this is even happening. As he thinks about the word regeneration, he remembers a lesson from the Fortress era when his teacher told him that healing magic can fix a wound, but it can never bring back what is already gone. Back then, a younger Krenu asked if that was true even for him, since he's the best healer in the kingdom, but his teacher said yes, though there is one specific magic that can pull off that kind of miracle. The young boy was surprised and asked if that meant even he could not use it. His teacher explained that it is not a skill anyone can just learn because it is a talent you have to be born with. And as Krinu stares at Nika now, the name of that art finally hits him. He realizes that what he is seeing right in front of him is the legendary regeneration magic. The regeneration magic flows through the woman as her body is finally restored to health. The young man with glasses is completely stunned by what he sees and asks if it is really healed. The red-haired companion is just as shocked, asking if there is no way this is really happening. She excitedly tells Nika that she's amazing, but Nika begins to stagger and look out of it, making her friend call her name in worry. Suddenly, Nika collapses to the ground because a merciless price befalls the girl who gave her all, while Krainu and the red-haired companion scream her name. The red-haired companion catches Nika as she falls, bringing us to the end of this chapter of the story, where the exiled noble does as he pleases. The red-haired companion catches Nika as she collapses, shouting her name and asking what is wrong. Nika looks totally out of it with spinning eyes, while Krainu tells everyone to calm down, explaining that it is just dizziness from her magic power being used up so fast. The young man with glasses adds that feeling like this is actually a pretty common symptom for novice mages. Krainu says not to worry because he has a potion, right as a release is confirmed for July 14th. Krainu asks if the red-haired companion can sit Grasa Nika up, and she gives him a quick okay. Nika suddenly gasps as she snaps back to her senses, looking completely startled. Nika wakes up totally confused, and the red-haired woman asks if she is doing okay. Nika starts to ask about Edra, but he speaks up and tells her it is okay, thanking her for even growing his fingers back. Feeling a huge weight off her shoulders, Nika just whispers thank goodness. But Krainu looks worried, thinking that the regeneration magic she just showed is going to be a real problem. It turns out that in the past, only a few people in the entire country have ever been known to use regeneration magic. Because it is so rare, the state has always protected those people and treated them like messengers of God. Edra realizes that protection is really just a nice word for being put under house arrest. He thinks about how the moment Nika's talent came to light, it was hard to tell if it was actually fortunate or unfortunate. As he looks ahead, Edra wonders if he should make the others keep quiet about what just happened. But out of nowhere, the red-haired woman grabs his arm from behind with a loud thud. Edra is totally shocked and doesn't know what to make of her sudden move. He feels himself being pulled down and realizes he's being caught in some binding magic. Edra is caught off guard and shouts out, "Hey," as he is suddenly pulled down. Krainu steps in to break up the fight, telling both of them that's enough. The red-haired woman looks stunned and mutters, "Redroll?" under her breath. Confused, she asks if they are outside, while a girl named Grasa calls out for Edra. The red-haired woman yells, "Grasa!" and asks if she is okay, and the girl says, "Yeah," as they share a hug. The whole group is left standing in the middle of a forest, wondering what on earth is going on. Edra finally understands the situation and realizes that the two of them were the ones who actually saved him. Grasa feels terrible and apologizes for kicking the person who helped them, but Krainu just rubs his head and tells her it is totally fine. Edra gives a warm smile and thanks the group, saying that because of them, both he and Grasa are still alive. Grasa starts to cry and tells Edra she is so sorry that he ended up getting hurt so much just because of her. Edra gently pats her head and tells her not to worry about it because he is just really glad to see that she is safe. Seeing the two of them reconcile, Krainu and his companion both smile and say they are just happy things worked out in the end. Edra thinks about the regeneration magic they just saw, and the short-haired girl mentions it is her first time seeing someone use it too. The short-haired girl asks if it is really that rare, and Edra is shocked she did not know that about her own power. He explains that regeneration magic is a really rare talent, so naturally, people are going to flock to it. Edra looks at her and says that if she tells the kingdom about it, they will protect her. He warns her that her freedom might be restricted, but that might be better than living in fear every day. Edra admits it might not be his place to say since he is an adventurer, while the short-haired girl looks quite troubled. Krainu looks over at Nika and softly calls out her name. He tells her that in any case, the choice is Nika's to make, so she should think it over carefully and decide. The dark-haired man with glasses spots them from the carriage and shouts that they have finally arrived. A friend says she is so glad Edra is safe, while the others suggest they explain everything once they are all in the carriage. Leaving the dark woods behind, the group makes their way back to the city and enters the break room at the town guild. Once they are settled, Nika asks them why the two of them came looking for them in the first place. Edra notices the necklace the girl with the ponytail is wearing and points out that it matches the one Nika has. Grasa is surprised and explains she's the one who gave it to her, asking what the big deal is, until Edra starts to explain what's actually going on. Grasa is shocked to hear it's a cursed tool, and Edra explains it seems to have the effect of blocking the flow of magic power. Edra mentions that they were originally worried about Grasa and went looking for her. Grasa is completely shaken, realizing she gave something so awful to Nika. Tears start to well up as Grasa tells Nika she is so sorry. Nika reassures everyone that she is okay because she was saved by Toa-san, and then she asks if Grasa was alright too. Grasa admits it is true. There was a time when the magic she wanted to use didn't come out, even though everyone told her back then it was just nerves. Looking at the necklace, Grasa laments that if it weren't for this tool, Edra-san wouldn't have had to protect her. Edra tells her to stop blaming herself and points out that Edra-san already forgave her, right? By the way, Edra asks her where exactly she got that cursed tool from. Grassa explains that an old acquaintance of her father runs a trading company over in the royal capital. Grassa asks Toa if he knows about the Black Luck Trading Company, but he admits he has never heard of it before. Toa thinks that maybe the company was established while he was busy away at the fort. Grassa starts to worry and wonders if her uncle gave her the item on purpose, or if it was a mistake, but Toa says that in any case, they have to take action. Toa points out that selling a cursed tool is a very unfavorable matter for any trading company. He decides that they really should go and confirm the situation for themselves. Grassa suggests going to see her uncle right away since the main building is nearby, and while Toa thinks the sooner the better, Nika seems a bit surprised by the plan. Nika hesitates and looks away, saying she just wants to think a little about her magic. Grassa agrees and tells her that the choice is Nika's to make. Toa sits nearby and kindly tells her to take her time to think it over. As they walk away, Toa agrees that it's for the best, when Grassa wonders if Nika will be okay, explaining that everyone needs time to think alone. They both know that Edra is completely healed now, thanks to Nika's help. In the meantime, Toa says they have their own mission to focus on. The scene shifts to the royal capital, right in front of the building for the Black Luck Trading Company. A door suddenly clicks open, and a voice calls out, thanking them for waiting. Grassa looks at the man in shock and whispers, "Uncle," realizing that this is the man they've been looking for. The man, known as Merchant Black Luck, sits back and tells them to go ahead and let him hear what business they have. He gives a wide, knowing smile as he waits for them to speak. Toa and Grassa sit across from him as the interrogation of this highly suspicious suspect finally begins. Merchant Black Luck sits across from them and bluntly tells them to state their business, while the narrator reminds us that the exiled noble does whatever he wants. Toa doesn't want to waste any time, so he tells the man he is going to get straight to the point. He looks the merchant right in the eyes and asks him why he gave Grassa a cursed tool. Merchant Black Luck looks shocked, questioning if it really is a cursed tool, and insisting there is no way that could be true. Grassa looks worried as she thinks about the necklace the old man gave her. A close-up shows the merchant's stunned expression as Toa explains that it was actually a cursed tool meant to mess with the flow of magic. Grassa's uncle is totally shocked and yells out in worry, asking Grassa if she's hurt. She tells him no, explaining that she's okay because Toa and the others in her party helped her out. The merchant sighs in relief and says that if something had happened to her, he wouldn't be able to face her father. He looks at the necklace and acts like he can't believe a cursed tool was actually mixed in there. The uncle tells Toa his appraisal eye is incredible, while Toa sits there wondering if the man is just going to keep playing dumb. Someone lets out a nervous little eep, while the uncle just smiles and says he's glad nothing serious happened. Toa warns the uncle that overlooking a cursed tool is a critical mistake that can cost lives. He adds that a slip-up like this would be a fatal blow to the trading company, which clearly rattles the merchant. Grassa's uncle admits Toa is absolutely right and asks to please let him thank him for what he did. Toa just wants her out of harm's way, telling the man that as long as she is safe, that is all that matters. The uncle insists on paying a suitable amount, pointing out that adventurers always have expenses they need to cover. Toa isn't interested in the money though, and tells him that his sentiment is enough. Toa and the uncle lock eyes in a tense stare down. Grassa stays close behind Toa, looking pretty nervous as the two men face off. Toa sees that the uncle's heart rate is normal, and he stays perfectly calm, which is impressive, and just what you'd expect from someone running a major trading company. Toa tells himself he'd like a few more cards to play, so he quietly activates his possession magic. Finally, the uncle breaks the silence and gets ready to say his goodbyes. He tells them he'd love to talk with Grassa more, but he's a busy man with plenty of work to do. Toa keeps his cool and agrees that they should end things here for today. As the merchant walks away, he thinks to himself that the adventurer should have just taken the money and kept his mouth shut. Watching through a tiny spider, the man thinks that even if the kid has a sharp nose for trouble, he picked the wrong person to mess with when he chose Blackra. He's really bothered by such a rude attitude. He grits his teeth and promises that he will make him regret it until the day he dies. It turns out he's already made his move. As he mentions, he's already sent his soldiers out. Blackra walks off, thinking to himself that getting his hands on Grassa can wait until after he finishes his current plan. A companion's voice calls out Toa's name as they prepare to leave the area. The brown-haired girl mentions that the old man said it wasn't on purpose, but Toa is convinced that he's guilty. Toa explains that the guy tried to play dumb at first, to keep them from suspecting anything. He notes that the man's attitude shifted the moment he realized they had seen through to the nature of the curse. To hide the truth, the man tried to change the subject by making an over-the-top show of worrying about Toa. Toa mentions how the man even tried to butter him up and buy his silence with money, showing he really underestimated them. He's not letting it go, though, promising the brown-haired girl that the guy is going to pay the price for putting everyone in danger. The brown-haired girl clutches her chest and agrees, simply saying that Toa is right. She explains that she's healed now thanks to Nika, but she's still clearly worried about how Edrasan was treated. Looking determined, she says they absolutely have to make that old man admit his guilt. Toa agrees, saying he first wants to find out why the man is targeting this girl, but he's suddenly caught off guard by something. Toa turns back and asks Grassa what is wrong. Toa apologizes to Grassa and asks if she can go back to Nika first, since he needs to stock up on some supplies. Grassa looks surprised and asks if he would like some help with his shopping. Looking really embarrassed, Grassa mentions that she is just looking for some private clothes and stuff. She suddenly shouts that she is heading back first and sprints away while Toa waves and tells her to take care. Watching her go, Toa notes that Grassa is so fast he can't even see her anymore. Toa realizes that while things seem convenient, there is clearly something else going on. Suddenly, Toa uses his earth magic to shock someone hiding in the shadows. Holding up his magic tool, Toa tells the hidden group that he knows they are there and they can come out now. A group of 3 thugs led by a buff man with an eye patch steps out from the darkness. Toa keeps his hand on his weapon, knowing that a capable merchant always works fast. The eye patch mercenary smiles and tells Toa that he is pretty sharp for noticing them. Toa greets the group with a simple hello and asks if the leader is the same guy who was hassling Nika back then, wondering if this meeting is just a coincidence. Standing his ground with his sword drawn, Toa asks what they want and why they've been following him while hiding their presence. The eye patch mercenary just smirks at him and calls him a cocky rookie adventurer. The mercenary adds that he thought he'd have a little fun with him. Laughing, the man says if Toa begs, he might forgive him because of his cute face and attractive figure. Suddenly, the eye patch mercenary drops the talk and yells for his crew to catch him. The bandit in the knit cap starts the fight by shouting, "Blessing freeze, ice magic," and sending sharp ice spikes flying forward. Toa reacts instantly and calls out, "Blessing tinder fire magic," to create a flame that can block the incoming attack. The bandit in the knit cap screams out, "Jia!" as the hooded woman fires her lightning arrow, light bow magic, straight at him. Toa doesn't stop for a second and charges ahead through the mess, with a very serious look on his face. He ends up in a fierce weapon clash with the scarred mercenary, who just keeps grinning, even as their blades grind together. While they're still stuck in a struggle, Toa looks the guy in the eye and asks if they're actually just Blackra's underlings. Toa asks what the reason is for capturing him instead of killing him. The scarred mercenary snaps back that like hell he'd ever tell him. Toa looks him in the eye and thinks to himself that the guy is not going to talk willingly, huh? He charges forward and lets out a big swing with his sword to keep the pressure on. Toa tells him to excuse him for getting so close, as he calls out his blessing earth magic. Suddenly, a huge pillar of rock shoots up from the ground and slams right into the scarred mercenary. The scarred mercenary groans in pain as he gets knocked back by the force of the attack. Toa pins him down with his foot and tells him that if he wants to play with him, he doesn't have enough people on his side. Standing over his defeated enemy, Toa calmly says, "Now then," as he gets ready for the next part. He stares him right in the eyes and makes it clear that he is going to answer him whether he wants to or not. The scene shifts to a quiet, expensive-looking house with several windows along the roof. Inside, the dark-haired noble looks over a document while having some tea and asks if an underground slave market really exists. The brown-haired noble looks over his papers and notes that lately, there's been an increase in nobles acting suspiciously, so he had it investigated and found something serious. Looking out at the castle, he reminds himself that slavery is strictly forbidden in this country, a law that was established about 20 years ago and enacted in the king's name. It is a rule which the nobles who serve the king should revere above all else. Since it's a law the current king drafted himself, there's no excuse for ignoring it. He slams his fist down in anger, thinking that to break that law is the same as baring your fangs at the kingdom. The brown-haired noble looks completely disgusted as he calls those people pest-like jerks. A sharp gaze narrows, as we're told that Kashid is one of the country's watchdogs. The brown-haired noble sits alone at his desk, darkly promising that he will tear their throats out. Back with Toa, he asks his captive why they attack them, and if their employer is actually Blackra. The scarred assassin snaps back, telling Toa there is no way he would ever tell him anything. Toa simply says he sees how it is, and immediately slashes right through the man. The scarred assassin lets out a loud scream as the attack lands and blood spills out. The scarred assassin groans in pain and stubbornly tells Toa to shut up. Toa stays totally calm and simply says he is using high-rank recovery magic. The scarred assassin is shocked as the magical light circles around his body. He stammers in disbelief when he realizes that his wound is already healed. But his relief doesn't last long, because Toa immediately delivers another massive blow. The man lets out a loud cry of pain as the force of the new strike lands. The scarred assassin is totally confused and asks why this is happening. He is stunned as he realizes that Toa is actually using high-rank recovery magic on him. Toa calmly explains that, as he can see, he is also able to use recovery magic. With an intense look, Toa says he can heal the scarred assassin's wounds as many times as it takes. He goes on to say he does not mind repeating the process until the captive finally breaks. The scarred assassin is terrified because he can tell that Toa is seriously going to do it. The scarred assassin finally breaks and yells that he will talk, begging Toa to please stop whatever he is doing. He confesses that the whole plan was to turn Toa into a slave. The man explains that the old man is connected to the slave market and funnels people into it like merchandise, admitting they were just following orders and had already caught a few others. Toa is surprised to hear about a slave market since the kingdom supposedly crushed it long ago, so he asks the man if he is lying. The scarred assassin swears it is the truth and says that since he only handles the kidnapping work, he does not know all the specific details. He adds that once they catch someone, they turn them into a slave, and the old man even promised he would show Toa hell. Toa asks what happens next and what the plan was for Grasa. The scarred assassin admits he doesn't know the reason, but he continues his story. He explains that the man intended to make that woman his personal slave and was very clear about taking her alive. Toa is shocked to hear they plan to take the innocent girl with her hostage to make sure she couldn't escape. The captive says the boss told them to use a cursed tool to seal her magic and just grab her. Thinking about Grasa, Toa realizes the man has an abnormal obsession with her and what a disgusting guy he is. Grasa knows she has to cut this problem off at the root and promises she will be back soon. The scarred assassin begs for help and shouts that they don't want to become slaves either. A voice suggests that if they want mercy, they should start by helping out a little bit in return. Meanwhile, Lear looks quite thoughtful as she wonders to herself about the mystery of regeneration magic. Grasa eventually makes it back and cheerfully calls out that she is home as she walks in. Lear welcomes Grasa back and asks where Toa is, so Grasa tells her he said he'd go shopping before coming home. Lear listens and says she sees. Grasa stays quiet for a second, just watching her friend. Grasa asks if Lear is still worried about it, and Lear admits that she is. Lear opens up, saying that ever since she was little, she always thought she had no talent for magic. She explains that the only thing she could ever do was healing magic. Lear remembers how even her healing was so much slower to take effect compared to her teacher. Lear explains that after a while, there was no one left in the village who needed her healing magic, and since it was a peaceful place, her teacher was enough on her own too. Grasa looks over at Lear and softly calls out her name. Lear adds that when Grasa asked her to become an adventurer, she was so happy because she thought her magic might actually be useful. Grasa smiles warmly, telling Lear she asked her because she thought what she did back then was amazing. She asks Lear if she remembers the time she healed that wild rabbit caught in a trap. It was caught in an old trap, and Grasa admits she thought it might die if they left it like that. Lear and Nika lean in together to get a closer look at the mysterious glowing symbol appearing on the plate. Looking at her friend, Lear mentions that she always figured Nika was going to grow up to be a first-rate healer. Lear admits she never even dreamed Nika would turn out to be a regeneration mage, and Nika says she's just as shocked as everyone else is. Lark looks pretty serious as he thinks about her rare regeneration magic, wondering what might happen if they actually told the kingdom about it. Hearing that, Nika goes quiet and looks down at the floor, clearly feeling really troubled by the situation. She closes her eyes and says she knew it, feeling like she'll just be a burden if she stays with them, so she decides she should probably give up on being an adventurer. Nika turns to her friend and starts by calling her name, saying, Grasa, Nika tells her that she thinks she will ask for their protection, which leaves Grasa completely shocked. Nika says there is no way she can stay, but Grasa can only ask her why. Looking down with a pained smile, Nika tells her friend that she is sorry. Grasa is startled for a moment before she finally looks away and says that she sees. The two of them are left alone in the quiet room together as the weight of Nika's decision settles in. Lark lands softly on a roof as he makes his way through the city under the night sky. He realizes the noble district is quite far, but if he hurries with body enhancement, he might make it in time. The vast royal capital actually has multiple guilds inside it, and this is just one of them. Looking toward a glowing window from the rooftops, Lark watches with a small smile. Seeing them together, he quietly quietly remarks that those two are close. His expression turns serious as he tells himself he can't put them in any more danger. Nika's regeneration magic has finally blossomed, and she stands with Grassa, who is currently being targeted by Blackra. Lark tells himself that he will aim for a slow life in another world once he has finished helping them. A carriage pulled by two horned beasts speeds quickly through the cobblestone streets of the city. Lark stands his ground in the middle of the road as the carriage rushes straight toward him. The blonde noble is confused for a second, but Lark suddenly appears right behind him and makes him yell out in shock. Before the man can react, Lark delivers a swift chop to the back of his neck to knock him out cold. Lark leans over the blonde noble and says, "Whoops," as he grabs onto him to move him out of the way. Outside, the carriage driver notices something is wrong and shouts, "Hey," asking what is going on. Lark quickly gets behind the driver and says, "Ah," as he knocks the man out with a swift hit to the neck. Inside the carriage, Viscount Cassite hears a loud noise from the roof and wonders what that was. The Viscount is completely caught off guard when he suddenly sees a face appearing right outside the carriage window. Hanging upside down with a calm smile, Lark politely says good day to Viscount Cassite. Viscount Cassite looks pretty stressed as he rubs his temple and wonders where his guards have gone. Lark just lets himself in and tells him the security is way too lax for him, while the Viscount tells him not to just barge in. Lark gets comfortable and asks why he is out so late, mentioning he was surprised to see a familiar carriage on the road while heading to the mansion. The Viscount asks if he changed his mind and came to kill him, but Lark says no and explains he just wants to discuss something. Things get serious as Lark asks the Viscount if he knows anything about the slave market. Lark can tell by the look on his face that he definitely knows about it, then asks if he could possibly be a buyer. Viscount Cassite looks pretty annoyed as he asks if that was meant to be an insult. Lark just smiles and says he's just kidding, adding that since the Viscount is as noble as his father, he can't imagine him ever allowing something like that. From outside the carriage, the Viscount questions how Lark even knows about the market in the first place. While Toa's stealth magic stays active in the background, Lark simply tells him that a lot has happened lately. The Viscount gets a serious look and says he actually came today because he has a favor to ask, though he goes silent for a moment after. Looking out over the quiet town roofs, the only response is for him to just spit it out. Lark stops for a moment and wonders if he has gone far enough. He reaches out his hand to activate a glowing magic circle on the floor. Lark looks down at the black-haired prisoner and says it looks like he has been behaving himself. The black-haired prisoner just chuckles and asks what Lark can really do in that state. Lark thinks about how his comrades are already dead and realizes that ever since this guy lost to him, he has had nothing left to lose. Lark tells him it is time to move and says they are going to go as planned. In a quiet room filled with books, Boss Blackra is busy searching through the shelves while holding a book he's already picked out. Zygo arrives at the door and announces that he is back, so the boss tells him to go ahead and come in. As Zygo walks into the room with a massive sack on his back, the boss turns around and asks him what that is. Earlier, Lark had laid out the plan, telling Zygo that he was going to return to his boss just like this. Lark explained that he would be going along too, hidden inside the bag as a gift for the boss. While Zygo carries him past the guards, Lark uses magic to watch through the eyes of a fly, warning Zygo that he can see everything and that he shouldn't try anything stupid. Zygo remembers the mission to infiltrate as a slave and find evidence to condemn Blackra's deeds. He knows that guiding Lark through this plan is the only condition for keeping him alive. Facing his boss, Zygo nervously explains that the man who was with the woman is actually still alive. Blackra looks serious and immediately asks what happened with Grassa. Terrified and breaking out in a sweat, Zygo stammers that the man somehow got away. As Zygo cries out in pain, a magical seal suddenly appears and begins to glow brightly on his neck. Zygo suddenly screams in agony as sparks of magic fly off the mark on his neck. He lets out a loud ouch and clutches his throat while clearly struggling with the pain. Watching closely with his magic eye, Lark realizes that there is something weird going on with that mark. The source of the problem seems to be a strange, round tool marked with a triangle of thorns. Blackra holds the object out, looking completely calm, while Zygo suffers. Lark notices the cursed tool and Zygo's neck are connected by a flow of magical energy, making him wonder if it is some kind of cursed tool that inflicts pain. Lark realizes this is exactly how Blackra makes slaves and hired mercenaries obey him. Blackra reminds Zygo that he ordered him to capture Grassa, making Zygo groan and say he's sorry for failing. Looking stern, Blackra tells him to open the bag. Zygo nervously says yes, and starts to pull the bag open. Lark thinks to himself that he needs to pretend to be unconscious as the bag starts to unzip. Lark lies perfectly still with his eyes shut to make sure his act is convincing. Blackra grabs Zygo by the collar, and says he has caused him a lot of trouble, while Zygo just grunts and tells him that it hurts. Blackra gives the order to take him to the dungeon, so Zygo quickly says, "Yes, sir," while he carries the bag with Lark inside. Lark peeks out from the bag with a sharp look, watching everything happen very carefully. A hand reaches out and pushes a specific spot on the wall to activate a secret switch. Blackra stares at the opening behind the bookshelf and notes how thorough they were to make such a hidden door. Zygo looks super tense and breaks into a sweat as he carries Lark deeper into the secret area. Blackra turns back with a mean look and tells Zygo to follow him. Zygo looks really nervous and sweaty, but he manages to stammer out a quick yes. He starts carrying the heavy bag down the stairs, dragging it along while a stray ribbon falls onto the floor. Zygo follows closely behind Blackra as they head deeper down the dark staircase. They finally reach a hallway lined with iron cells, and Zygo is so shocked he can only say this is unbelievable. Inside one of the cages, a couple of kids are huddled together in the dark, and one even has a strange mark on their shoulder. Blackra leads the way through the dark hallway, while Zygo follows behind, the sound of their boots echoing against the stone. Blackra orders Zygo to put him inside one of the cells, and Zygo quickly says yes as they reach the bars. Zygo doesn't waste any time and dumps the bag onto the hard floor of the cell with a heavy thud. Suddenly, a splash of water hits Lark right in the face, leaving him totally shocked as he tries to wipe his eyes. Blackra stands over him and says that now he has to start, and that first he needs to make him usable as a slave while he holds up a collar and a glowing magic circle. Way up high, a small barred window lets in a bit of daylight, showing a tiny glimpse of the trees and the world outside. The blonde woman points out that it's morning, and Mr. Toa still hasn't come back, wondering what happened, while Grassa just gives a short reply. Grassa falls silent and wonders to herself if something happened with the old man. Seeing her look so shocked, the blonde woman asks Grassa what is wrong. She says that Grassa getting so quiet all of a sudden actually surprised her. Grassa apologizes and explains that she was just thinking about something. She knows the old man is her father's friend, but she still seems really worried about the situation. Young Grassa peeks from behind a wall, watching the adults with wide, curious eyes. Grassa's father looks off to the side with a small, knowing smile on his face. Young Grassa runs out and asks her dad what he was talking about with the old man. Her dad says the man agreed to help with their business and mentions that having good friends is exactly what you should have. Grassa's father says he is sorry even though the man helped him, but the old friend apologizes for not being more help. Watching the two men, young Grassa looks quite serious as she stays hidden around the corner. The old friend smiles and says he will continue the support for Grassa's sake. Grassa looks down with a serious face as she finishes thinking about her past. Suddenly, the blonde woman cheers, "All right," as Grassa stands up to her full height, ready to move. Grassa tells her friend that they should go look for him right now. She explains that no matter how strong Toa is, she is still worried if he hasn't come back by morning. Grassa and the blonde woman hold hands tightly, finding strength in each other as they prepare to head out. A mysterious guy with messy hair stands in the dark while someone lets out a loud shout of "Yeah!" Grassa explains that this is where she and Toa split up. But as she thinks about Hanona's movements, the blonde companion mentions how dark it is. Suddenly, Grassa stops in her tracks and let out a confused hum as she notices something on the floor. Seeing her pause like that, the blonde companion asks what's wrong. Grassa looks closer and asks if the faint mark she found is actually a bloodstain. The blonde companion looks at the spot and admits she isn't entirely sure if that's what it is, but she looks pretty worried. Grassa remembers being in Adora's party before they went into the cave, and how they saw a fight against some weak monsters where the blood splattered in a similar way and had the same dull color. Looking around the area, the blonde companion wonders if there could have actually been a fight right here. Grassa stays quiet for a moment, clearly lost in thought as she tries to piece everything together. She suggests they really should go to the old man's mansion, which makes the blonde companion worry if Mr. Blackra might have done something to Toa. Grassa admits it is still just a possibility, but she has a really bad feeling about all of this. Meanwhile, a strange-looking bug with a magic circle on it flies nearby, seemingly watching them. A tiny glowing bug flies past rows of books, thinking to itself that there is nothing here that looks like evidence. It turns out, Toa is using a magic circle to connect with the bug, seeing everything it sees while he is stuck somewhere else. In a dark cell, a mean guy with a white streak in his hair clicks his tongue while holding a whip. He is annoyed because Toa hasn't made even a single groan despite his injuries, and he calls Toa a detestable man for being so tough. The jerk says he thought he would prepare him a bit more, but since that didn't work, he realizes it can't be helped. He reaches into his clothes to grab something else, thinking about how he has to use that cursed tool now. While he's stuck there, Toa notices that the door to Blackra's room is open, and figures he has no choice but to take this quietly for now. The man then starts the curse seal engraving, and Toa can't help but let out a grunt of pain as the magic is forced burst onto his skin. A strange magical pattern begins to glow brightly as it's seared directly onto his chest. The white-streaked interrogator just smirks and says it must be excruciating, explaining that this cursed tool binds the mind and body tighter the more Toa resists it. After saying he has wasted enough time and is off to work, the man tells Zygo to stand guard, and the guard nervously says yes. As he watches him walk away, Toa realizes the man is going in the opposite direction from the way they came, which means there must be multiple entrances to this place. Toa watches the interrogator walk away and notes that he is finally gone. He clenches his fist tight and starts to gather his strength. All of a sudden, he shatters the heavy metal chains as if they were made of nothing. He reaches up to the mark on his skin with a very serious look on his face. Seeing him pull at the seal, Zygo is completely shocked and asks what on earth he is doing. Toa just looks at the glowing energy and tells him that he just peeled off the curse seal. Toa explains that if he gouges it out before the curse permeates his entire body, it won't be a problem. He thinks it's wild that the cursed tool had a magic sealing effect which actually broke his possession spell. Then he asks Zygo how many entrances there are to this dungeon. Zygo tells him the only ones he has used are the stairs they came down and a path that leads to a back gate outside. Toa then asks about the path Blackra just used, but Zygo says he has never used it, so he doesn't know where it leads. Toa realizes there are at least 3 then, and one of them leads outside. As he pulls his robe back on, Toa asks if they shall do a little search before he gets back. We jump back 20 minutes earlier, where 2 girls are seen peeking around a corner to check the area. Seeing the coast is clear, one of the girls sneaks out and confirms that nobody is around right now. The girl in glasses asks Grassa if it is really okay to just walk into his mansion, and Grassa admits they will likely get yelled at if they get caught, but she wants to keep going. Grassa explains that if they go in through the front, he will definitely cover things up, so they have to catch him off guard. She adds that if something did happen and Toa is here, they are probably the only ones who can find her. When the girl in glasses asks what they will do if nothing actually happened, Grassa says she will just apologize like crazy. Grassa has a hunch that she really hopes is wrong, but she just can't shake Toa's words or the look on the old man's face back then. Her eyes narrow as she realizes she knew it all along, thinking to herself that the old man is definitely up to something. The 2 of them continue through the empty halls, with the only sound being their own footsteps in the heavy silence. Looking around the empty corridor, the girl in glasses mentions how quiet it is, saying that for such a big mansion, there's hardly anyone here. Grassa agrees and says that the old man has never really been one to hire servants or anything like that. But then, they both stop in their tracks and let out a confused, huh, as if they've spotted something strange up ahead. Looking down at the floor, the girl in glasses spots a mark and wonders if it is a bloodstain. The 2 of them stand in front of some massive doors, feeling the tension in the quiet hallway. The girl in glasses asks if she should try a detection spell even though it's not very accurate, and Grassa tells her to please go for it. After checking, the girl in glasses reports that nobody is in there and asks what they should do, but since it's locked, Grassa says she still wants to check inside. Grassa gets a determined look on her face and says, "All right." Grassa tells her friend to just wait a second as she gets to work, and the girl in glasses is surprised to see Grassa can actually pick a lock. Grassa gives a playful wink and laughs, saying she just happens to have a bit of a habit of sticky fingers. The 2 of them slowly push the big doors open and peek into the room to see what is waiting for them. At first glance, the room looks completely empty, and the girl in glasses points out that there is nothing there. Grassa steps inside anyway, hoping they will find something in here that can finally lead them to Toa. Suddenly, something on the ground catches her eye, and she stops as she realizes she has found a clue. She looks down and recognizes it immediately, realizing she is holding Toa's ribbon. The girl in glasses notices something is off and calls out to Grassa. She starts to ask what's wrong, but she's quickly interrupted. A mysterious voice from the dark says, "Well, well, well." A man with a shadowed face stands there and asks whatever young ladies like them are doing in a place like this. It seems they've been found out, making everyone wonder about the fate that awaits 2 who failed at sneaking in. The blonde man carrying some books looks toward them and just says, "Oh my." It seems young Grassa is the type who just does whatever she wants as she flashes a cheerful smile. Grassa explains she came over to play because her daddy is away for work, but her uncle tells her she is really such a handful. The blonde man says he has work to do too and can't entertain her, which makes her shout out "what" in disbelief. When Grassa complains that she is so bored, her uncle gives her some pocket money and tells her to go play outside. She gives a simple yes, while staring down at the copper coin she was just handed. But instead of leaving, Grassa excitedly tells her uncle to watch her do something. Grassa excitedly shouts, "Ta-da!" and tells her uncle that she can finally do it. She holds up the coin and explains that she can turn one thing into 2 now. Her uncle looks on in total shock as she asks him if what she did isn't amazing. He lets out a simple yeah, while a mysterious little smile creeps onto his face. He picks the little girl up and tells Grassa that she really is amazing. The uncle warns her that she mustn't show this to anyone else, or they'll all be shocked, and she gives a long, happy, okay. Looking pretty sinister, the man thinks to himself that the time for harvest isn't now. He spots the two young ladies and asks them what they are doing there. He seems almost amused as he questions why they would show up in a place like this. The red-haired girl can only gasp out uncle, while her blonde friend realizes with a shock that this man is Brackla. Brackla strokes his chin mockingly, asking if she's come to ask for pocket money just like when she was little. His expression turns sharp as he reminds her that she really shouldn't just barge into his room like that. The blonde girl feels really uneasy, thinking those eyes look like he is appraising her. The red-haired girl nervously tells her uncle that she came because she has something to ask him. Looking him straight in the eye, she asks where Toa is. Brackla rubs his chin and wonders if this is about Lord Toa. He recognizes the blonde girl as the adventurer who was with her the other day. Unfortunately, he says he does not know where he is and asks if something happened to him, trailing off with a fake smile. The red-haired girl clenches her teeth and tells him well then. She holds up a piece of evidence and asks why his ribbon was lying here. Looking at the scrap of fabric, she adds that, and besides, it's all torn to shreds. She stares him down and asks her uncle if he did something to him. Didn't he? Getting even more upset, she shouts for him to answer her. Brackla just lets out a sigh while adjusting his ring and asks but what of it? Brackla gives a nasty grin and says that, or so he'd like to say, very well. He looks down on them and says, these little kittens playing detective have come all the way into a dead end. Brackla reaches out his hand and says he shall entertain them. He activates a cursed tool known as a cursed round shield, making a magic circle glow over his eye. The red-haired girl and the blonde girl are stunned as a huge glowing wall suddenly shoots up in front of them. The red-haired girl grabs her weapon and asks if that is a magic barrier. The red-haired girl charges forward, hoping to strike before Brackla can fully deploy his magic. She puts every bit of speed she has into her movement, letting out a sharp breath as she closes in. But Brackla is way too calm, and as a magic circle appears over his eye, he tells her she is both too slow and too light. He effortlessly dodges her blade with a smile, making her desperate attack look like child's play. The red-haired girl clicks her tongue in frustration, just as the blonde girl jumps in and shouts for her light arrow magic. Brackla blocks the magical barrage with a single hand and teases them both for being such tomboyish ladies. Brackla smirks and explains that he loves making money more than anything else. He goes on about the amazing feeling he gets when he's the only one who can see a product's true value. Looking right at her, he laughs and says that Grassa is exactly that kind of prize. He gets a wild look in his eyes and shouts that he will spare no effort to get his hands on her. Grassa stays quiet as he tells her she holds the value of 100 million. He calls her his golden goose and says she is worth way more than any noble lady who has been captured. Grassa looks completely confused by her uncle's greed and asks what he is even talking about. She has no time for his crazy talk and yells for him to stop spouting nonsense while she launches an attack. Brackla stays totally calm, holding out a hand to block her while telling her she needs to listen carefully to what he is saying. He easily stops her weapons with a magical barrier called a cursed round shield. Seeing a chance, the group calls out for a move now and uses a wind cutter spell, sending wind blade magic slamming into his defense. Brackla just scoffs at their effort, looking really stuck up as he calls their moves mere tricks. Grassa points her finger and demands that he tell her where Toa is. Brackla responds by showing off his duplication magic, filling the air around him with a swarm of floating swords. He follows that up by using curse strengthening to make his magic even more deadly. Grassa stands there in total silence, sweating as she and the blonde-haired girl watch in shock. Brackla smiles and tells her that her ability seems to be growing, but then he says what a waste it all is and looks down on that power of hers. Brackla yells at her, telling her she should use her power to generate money. He thinks it is a total waste to squander it on barbaric acts that won't earn even a single coin. He claims that creating wealth from nothing is a divine act and says it pained him to hear she had become an adventurer. Looking at her, he decides he must prepare a breeding ground so he can make her lay golden eggs. Out of nowhere, a hand covers Brackla's mouth as a magical symbol begins to glow. This triggers a spell that sends heavy metal chains bursting out of the magic circle to restrain him. Nika, the red-haired adventurer, is caught completely off guard as chains suddenly appear all around her. Grassa shouts for her purification magic to kick in, while Nika struggles to break free from the heavy magic bindings. Grassa quickly thanks Nika for the assist, but Nika is already glaring at the enemy and snaps back at him. Looking at the situation, Nika wonders just how many of those cursed tools Brakla is hiding up his sleeve. She notices that Grassa doesn't even seem to be using up her magic power, though she still thinks these cursed tools are a massive pain to handle. Brakla just gives a smug look and says he only has them because you never know when a barbaric person like her might try to attack him. Brakla shouts that he must protect himself like this and unleashes a powerful spell called Cursed Stormwind. Grassa and Nika are caught totally off guard by the sudden blast of wind. Nika clicks her tongue as the force of the attack sends her flying backward. She groans in pain as she crashes into the shelves, making books fall everywhere. Brakla walks toward them and says he would love to play with those frail ladies a little longer. He tells them resistance is futile because the weak are devoured by the strong, and that is simply how the world works. Brakla grins and says that on that note, Nika's father was a masterpiece. He mocks her by saying her dad begged for help from the man who ruined his business without even knowing it, and says the man was just livestock to be eaten by the strong. Nika looks totally shaken and wonders if all of this is happening because she lacks power. She looks at the ground and asks herself if her dad was swallowed up by this man just like this. She can only stammer, I, while Brakla looms over her. Exhausted and hurt, Nika calls out for Toa. Out of nowhere, a huge strike sends books flying through the air, while Brakla's smug look is caught by surprise. Brakla is knocked backward by the force and screams out in total shock, wondering what's happening. Seeing Toa standing there with his sword and open robe, Brakla calls him a jerk and demands to know why he's here. Toa looks back with a sharp gaze and says he is there because he's strong, signaling that his counterattack is starting. A bloodied and frustrated Brakla clutches his face and yells at the jerk again, asking why he's here of all places. Toa doubles down on his answer and stares him down, repeating that it's simply because he is stronger. Toa takes a quick look around and says, "Now then." Nika kneels beside the injured person and says she will ask why they are both here later. Toa focuses on the enemy and says that, first, for now, he has to act. Toa points his staff and shouts, "Binding magic," as a magical circle lights up the room. Brakla looks completely panicked and yells for a curse tool activation. A huge hexagonal barrier appears as Brakla uses his cursed round shield to block the attack. Toa powers himself up with a body augment and launches a wind cutter, but Brakla fights back by calling out for a curse enhancement and a curse round shield. Brakla is clearly getting frustrated and screams that Toa is nothing but an annoying brat. Toa keeps a cool head and simply replies that the guy is actually taking the words right out of his mouth. Pushed to his limit, Brakla activates a cursed strong arm to beef up his strength for the next move. Toa isn't finished yet and prepares a massive attack using his overlap magic circle ensemble. A giant blast of energy erupts across the room as the two powers finally collide. The dust starts to settle after the big explosion, and someone calls out Toa's name in total shock. Toa is still standing tall with his back turned, firmly gripping his sword as the smoke clears. He looks back and throws the villain's own words in his face, asking if it was him who said the weak are devoured by the strong. Brakla is clearly sweating and looking nervous as he asks Toa which one of those he is supposed to be right now. Toa's sharp eyes catch a glimpse of something hidden, and he wonders if it's a ledger. He doesn't waste any time and demands that Brakla hand over the book. Toa notices a tiny flinch and points out that Brakla reacted. He explains that they found slaves and cells underground, but no core evidence that could round up the scumbag nobles they were selling to in one sweep. Looking closer, Toa realizes that this book is almost certainly a secret ledger for the slave trade. Brakla starts sweating and thinks to himself that he must avoid this being exposed at all costs. He reaches out a shaking hand to try and snatch the book away, but Toa is much quicker and slams his foot down to keep him away. Toa lashes out with a powerful strike, his face shadowed with intense focus. Brakla lets out a terrified scream, wondering if the hammer of justice is finally about to fall on all these corrupt merchants. Out of nowhere, a cursed tool shatters into pieces, making it a clear all-or-nothing situation. Panicking, Brakla yells out for a cursed windstorm to trigger one last desperate attack. The sudden blast of magic catches Toa off guard as the wind kicks up all around them. Toa clicks his tongue in annoyance while keeping his sword ready for whatever comes next. Toa wonders if Brakla made the cursed tool go haywire, thinking that if he messes up, he's dead. Brakla just gives a nasty, creepy grin through the dust. Grabbing a hostage, Brakla shouts that it seems fortune still favors him. The corrupt merchant yells for Toa to drop his weapon and get on his knees quietly. Looking totally done with the situation, Toa stays silent and just thinks about what a pain this is. The brown-haired noble looks on and says he understands the gist of it, so it is fine. The brown-haired noble looks at Toa and says he'll go along with his plan. Toa bows his head politely and tells him thank you very much. But the brown-haired noble adds that he has one condition for his help. He starts talking about the merchant connected to that slave market. With a serious look in his eyes, he tells Toa that he must take him alive. He explains that the reason is because there are many nobles and powerful figures backing the whole operation. The brown-haired noble explains that the odds are far too stacked against a large-scale investigation right now. He notes that because of this, the merchant will have to become living proof of the crimes they are trying to expose. He emphasizes that they really need to thoroughly isolate them to keep the situation under control. There is a serious worry that if the merchant is killed halfway through the plan, their whole case will fall apart. He wonders what the people who realize the market's been exposed will do to protect themselves once they find out. Finally, he warns Toa that he won't get off scot-free either once this dangerous operation begins. Toa takes the warning to heart, telling himself he'd best be very careful as he moves on to the next step. Looking ahead, Toa wonders what he should do as he watches a man clutching a young girl who looks like she's in trouble. The girl groans in pain as she struggles to stay conscious while being held. The man holding her calls out Nika's name in total panic, clearly worried about her. Downstairs, the scarred fighter complains about how noisy it is above him and wonders what the heck they are even doing up there. He mentions that some guy just suddenly bolted off and disappeared out of nowhere, leaving everyone confused. Looking pretty worried, the scarred fighter thinks that maybe he should just slip away while he has the chance. But before he can move, a bare foot silently steps out from the shadows and onto the floor. The scarred fighter turns around with a confused, "Huh?" and wonders, "What the?" when he sees someone standing right behind him. He looks totally shocked and yells that a slave isn't allowed to go outside on their own. Caught completely off guard, the scarred fighter can only let out another, "Huh?" as he looks up at the girl. Nika just stands there with her hair covering her eyes and lets out a quiet, tired phew. The muscular scarred fighter stands tall in his torn clothes, looking like he's been through a lot of hard work. He's completely drenched in sweat and stares ahead with an intense look in his eyes. Meanwhile, Toa finds himself in a dark hallway, staring up at the ceiling where someone is dripping blood from above. Back with the others, the dark-haired ally shows off a stolen book with a cheeky grin and asks if they can forgive her for having sticky fingers. The scarred noble is totally shocked to see it's a duplicate and yells out, wondering when she could have possibly made the switch. She just laughs and explains that her big chance came when they all got swept up by that tornado. The dark-haired ally laughs and says that the enemy left themselves open for just a moment. She says it is all thanks to Toa while flashing a peace sign, and Toa thinks the whole thing is amazing. Toa realizes that the man was only after Grasa because of this specific magic. He looks at a glowing symbol and notes it is a power that could be abused endlessly after all. A short-haired girl stares off blankly and whispers about resurrection magic. The dark-haired ally mentions duplicate magic and nervously suggests they probably should not look inside. Toa smiles to himself as he thinks about how he has managed to get acquainted with two really incredible people. He calls out to Grasa, asking to check the ledger, and she quickly responds that she has got it as she runs over. Examining the paper, Toa notices that all of the contents have been perfectly duplicated as well. He looks closely at the messy handwriting and realizes what he is holding. Toa says there is no doubt that this is the ledger with the financial records, but something is wrong. It turns out the crucial client list is encrypted, and as Toa expected, it is not something he can decode right away. Toa figures that Blackra can probably decode it easily enough, so he is not too worried about the secret ledger yet. Lying on the floor, the traitor groans a muffled, and wonders if he should just leave the rest to his brother, Lord Kashit. Out of nowhere, Toa's eyes widen in shock as a dark presence suddenly moves right behind him. He quickly spins around, clearly caught off guard, as he feels the pressure of a surprise attack. A sharp flash of movement slices through the air in a split second. Grasa lets out a shocked, "Wah!" but Toa yells for both of them to stay still as he holds up a magic circle to protect them. A bare foot steps down hard into a splash of dark liquid on the floor. The mysterious attacker suddenly appears, holding the head of the captured traitor as blood pools on the ground. There's a messy splashing sound as we get a close-up of the attacker's cold, dark eye. Toa looks totally shocked and realizes with a panic that Blackra is in trouble. Toa is on high alert because he couldn't sense this guy's presence until he got close. Toa tells himself he will think about it later and focuses on the now, while the mysterious attacker coldly says the target is eliminated. The mysterious attacker raises his hand and coldly says he is now attempting to eliminate the witnesses. He lunges forward with crazy speed, but Toa manages to block the strike with his sword just in time. Toa looks really surprised when he notices those strange, shadowy hands reaching out toward him. The two of them get locked in a close fight, staring each other down while the attacker keeps pressing forward. Toa is clearly fed up and demands to know who the hell the guy is. The mysterious attacker doesn't say a single word and just gives him a totally blank look. Toa yells out to his silent opponent, asking why they won't just tell him what is going on. While dodging another attack, Toa teases the fighter, calling them a shy one for refusing to speak. Toa realizes it was a calculated move that they went straight for Blackra first, to shut him up forever. He then asks the attacker if they are just a hired blade working for some noble who is involved in the trafficking. Since he isn't getting any answers, Toa goes on the offensive and prepares to use his light arrow magic. The light-haired killer moves with incredible speed, zipping through the air even as the magic begins to flash. The light-haired killer keeps a totally blank face while the fight heats up, looking almost bored with those tired eyes. Toa tells the assassin to at least meet his eyes, complaining that it feels lonely, like he is just talking to a mannequin. The killer doesn't give him an answer, and instead lets out a powerful strike that cuts through the air. From the sidelines, someone shouts out for Toa as the two of them continue to clash in a blur of motion. The light-haired killer stays focused and throws out another fast attack, determined to end things quickly. Toa realizes the killer is aiming precisely for his vitals, but he smirks, because each individual hit isn't actually that heavy. Toa decides he is just going to push through and win, charging forward with his magic ready. The light-haired killer watches him come closer, a small and confident smile appearing on his face. But then, the light-haired killer suddenly stops in his tracks, and his expression goes totally blank. He starts moving like a blur, showing off some seriously high-speed footwork to dodge the attack. In the blink of an eye, the light-haired killer retreats across the room to create a massive gap between them. Toa is left standing there completely confused, wondering why the guy suddenly pulled back. Toa looks on with a sharp grin and mentions that it seems an obstacle has arrived. This catches the light-haired killer off guard, and he asks in surprise if Toa can actually talk. Toa sees the man's face starting to melt into black ink and yells for him to wait as he notices what is happening to his face. The killer completely turns into a dark cloud and tells Toa that he has memorized his face before he disappears. Toa is surprised as a voice from the door asks what is going on. The stern official enters the room and explains that he came over because he heard sounds of fighting. Toa looks back at the dark residue left on the floor, realizing the assassin has completely disappeared. The stern official reminds him that he gave strict orders to take the man alive, and Toa can only give a quick apology for the mess. Thinking deeply, the stern official notes that the attacker seems to have been quite a skilled operative. He explains that the guy was likely an insurance policy planted by noble clients in anticipation of a situation like this, which leaves Toa looking pretty shocked. A red-haired woman with a choker steps up and warns Toa that from now on, he will be targeted from both the front and the back. A blonde woman adds that he won't have another peaceful night's sleep in the royal capital, and Toa starts to panic, wondering if his dream of a slow life is in serious danger. Toa is warned that by tomorrow, their reach will extend across the entire capital. The red-haired woman and the blonde woman look completely shocked by this news. Toa tells them congratulations, because they're wanted criminals now, as his life races full speed in the opposite direction of the slow life he wanted. The stern official mockingly tells Toa congratulations for becoming a wanted criminal. The stern official looks really stuck up and says it's a shame Toa has fallen so low after being banished. Toa snaps back at him, telling him not to dare say that, because he is the one who banished him in the first place. A woman explains that it isn't just her foolish brother anymore, because now both of the girls find themselves in the same bad position. The stern official turns his focus toward the young man and calls out his name, Toa. He gives a direct order, telling Toa that he needs to leave the royal capital immediately. Toa keeps a serious expression and says that he already knows what has to be done. The official explains it is risky to let everyone escape together, so they will take custody of the two girls and arrange separate shelters for each of them, making one of them repeat separately in shock. The short-haired girl looks down at the floor and sadly admits that he is right. The short-haired girl looks down and asks if this isn't exactly what they knew all along. She admits that even with her healing magic, she just lacked the confidence to keep going as an adventurer. Since they were already planning to flee to the church anyway, she feels like this was bound to happen. Then if Toa or Grassa got hurt somewhere unknown, she worries that she wouldn't be able to do anything to help. Looking at her own back, she wonders what she even left the village for anyway. As she remembers a happy moment with her friends, she thinks back to how she once thought her power was an incredibly kind magic. The short-haired girl looks like she's finally made up her mind, as she stares ahead with a really serious face. Toa starts to say something, but she steps up and firmly tells him that she is going with Toa. This catches Toa completely off guard, and he looks totally surprised that she's being so bold. She admits she knows this isn't exactly a wise choice, and that she'll be a burden to Toa. Even if she makes things harder, she looks him in the eye and says she just doesn't want them to be separated. Remembering the people she cares about, like the ponytail woman, she realizes she has to stay by Toa's side. She looks him right in the eye and says that with her own power, she really wants to be the one to protect them. Toa just stares at her in silence, clearly surprised by how determined she sounds. He finally asks if she is actually serious and if she really understands what she is saying. Toa explains that if she relies on the Casito family, she could just relax in a far-off village until things cool down, which is way safer than sticking with him. But she doesn't budge and simply tells him that even so, she isn't going anywhere. Toa is surprised by her answer, but Nika firmly says yes to show she's serious. Out of nowhere, Grassa says she doesn't want to be separated either, making Toa and Nika both look a bit confused. Grassa suddenly yells to Nika that she's sorry, which makes Nika jump in surprise. Looking really guilty, Grassa tells Nika that all this time, she has been hiding the truth. She finally shouts that she kept quiet about her own power. Grassa explains that even when she found out Nika could use healing magic and saw how hard she was struggling, she didn't say a word. Grassa admits she was so wrapped up in herself that she just couldn't say it. She bows down and tells Nika she should have been able to be there for her more. Nika looks at her and says she's sorry for making Grassa carry it all alone. Nika points out that Grassa is really the same as her, but it seems there's even more to it. Grassa shouts that's not the only thing, and wishes she had just opened up about herself sooner. She's convinced that if she had been honest, maybe all of this could have been avoided. Nika looks at her friend and softly says Grassa's name. Grassa explains that when she realized her power could be misused, she was absolutely terrified. She admits that is the reason why she could not tell anyone, not even Nika. She is quick to clarify that it is not because she did not trust her. Grassa was just really scared that she might drag her friend into danger. Looking at a memory of the smug man, she regrets how things turned out and wishes she had been more vigilant for her uncle in Blackwood. The spiky-haired young man steps in and tells Grassa that what she's saying isn't true. He looks her in the eye and says that his wickedness has nothing to do with her. Nika turns toward her friend and thanks Grassa for being with her all this time. She gives a big, happy smile and tells Grassa she wants her to stay with her from now on. She keeps that warm expression and asks for no more secrets between them from now on. Grassa starts to cry with relief and smiles as she agrees. Toa starts to say something, but he seems a bit hesitant as he looks away. Nika speaks up and tells Toa that she knows she is asking for something incredibly unreasonable. Grassa gives a supportive smile, while Nika keeps a serious, focused look on her face. Toa is caught off guard for a second, but then his expression softens into a little smile. The man with the side-parted hair sighs and says that it simply can't be helped. They decide that the first thing they must do is escape the royal capital, and since the sooner they go the better, they plan to leave right after this. The group decides they have to use the back roads because breaking through the main gate will leave a trail for people to follow. Even so, Nika is already starting to feel the strain of their escape. Nika shouts that there aren't any sewers here, as the trio splashes through the dark tunnels with a giant monster right behind them. While they scramble to get away, Nika complains that the giant frog is just so persistent. Toa explains that it is an evil frog that likes filthy places, so it probably made its nest right here in the sewers. Exhausted and out of breath, Nika asks the others how long they are going to have to keep running. Toa explains that they can't fight too flashily since there's a residential district right above them. He calls out to Nika and tells her to cast an enhancement spell on Grassa once he gives the signal, and she tells him she's ready. Toa then tells Grassa to charge at the frog with everything she has once she's powered up, and she gives an excited shout. He shouts that it's time to use the enhancement magic and run right through. Nika says she's on it, and calls out her physical enhancement magic as she casts the spell. Grassa dashes forward with incredible speed, dual-wielding her weapons as the magic takes effect. Grassa dives into the attack with a loud "Hiya," making the monster let out a "Guya" as she strikes. She moves like a total blur through the air, leaving the monster to groan in pain. Toa jumps right in to finish things off, pinning the beast down firmly with his sword. The force of the strike sends the giant frog sliding backward through the murky sewer water. Once the fight is over, Toa checks on his friends and asks if anyone got hurt. Grassa flashes a peace sign and says they are not hurt at all because the enhancement magic was perfect, making Nika sigh in relief as she says thank goodness. Toa gives the others a big smile and tells them they did some really nice work. He admits it was a sudden order, but he's happy with how well they handled the situation. Grassa looks pretty proud of herself and says they are adventurers after all, even if they're just total rookies for now. Nika tells him to just leave it to them, and Toa tells them both to keep it up since he's counting on them. As they keep moving through the dark, Toa points out that they're finally almost out of the royal capital. Once they're clear of the city, he says they'll return to the surface and cut through the forest to stay on track. Grassa thinks about heading into the forest and realizes it's going to be a whole lot of walking. Toa agrees with her and says it's definitely going to be quite a journey for them. He adds that, even so, their very first destination is a place called Lock. Hearing the name, Nika repeats Lock with a surprised look on her face. She looks toward Toa and asks if that isn't the trading city way up in the north. Toa keeps moving and confirms that she is exactly right. Toa warns the girls not to let their guard down while they are on the way. Nika and Grassa both shout back right away, telling him that they understand. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the back alleys of Locke, where someone is seen running in a hurry. Men are racing through the narrow streets, shouting for the others to search and asking where their target went. Hiding in the shadows, the girl in the cap is breathing hard and wondering what she should do. She looks completely terrified, thinking that if things keep going like this, a war is going to break out. Looking at the map of the Pleiades kingdom, the group sees that Locke sits way up north between the royal capital and a fortress. They finally reach Locke, a major city in the northern kingdom known for its busy streets. Grassa lets out a big stretch and happily says they have finally arrived, while Toa and Nika follow close behind her. Nika notices how incredibly lively the place is, and Grassa agrees that it really feels like a bustling trade hub. A shopkeeper mentions the city is overflowing with people and goods, so Toa notes it is the perfect temporary cover, since the best way to hide a tree is in a forest. Toa gives a small smile and says they should go look for an inn right away. Toa adds that he also wants to take some time to sort through and restock their supplies. Looking back, they really had to leave the royal capital as fast as they possibly could. He notes that thanks to Grassa's power, his guild info, along with Nika's and the rest of the group's data, has been completely frozen. He figures that even a powerful noble won't make any bold moves while the Kassite family, the king's hounds, are watching over things. But if he had to name one thing he's still unsure about, it would definitely be that mysterious assassin. Suddenly, Nika pops up and calls out to Toa, catching him totally off guard. Nika notices Toa looks troubled and asks what's with the long face or if there's something on his mind. Toa tries to act like everything is fine and simply says it is nothing. Nika tells him to let them know right away if anything happens, reminding him that they are a party after all. Toa appreciates her support and gives her a quick thank you. On the inside, Toa starts panicking because he let his feelings show on his face, thinking he still lacks discipline. He finishes by telling himself that he mustn't make those two worry about him. Toa tells his group they can browse the market, but only after they find an inn first. Nika is totally fine with that plan and gives him a cheerful okay while waving her arms in the air. Meanwhile, the boy in a cap is sweating as he sprints through the city as fast as he can. Toa stays focused on their search and mentions that they are looking for an inn while checking his paper. While Toa is busy showing the paper to someone at a counter, the boy in a cap suddenly rushes right past him, but out of nowhere, the boy in a cap slams into Toa, making them both cry out with a wah and an eek as they collide. The boy in a cap looks completely stunned for a second as he quickly fixes his hat after the crash. He doesn't even slow down, just shouts that he is so sorry and keeps on running, while Toa watches him go with a puzzled look. Nika asks Toa what is wrong, but he just tells her it is nothing and keeps moving. They spot a spot that looks like an inn district up ahead, and Nika sounds surprised and asks if that is really it. But when they finally get to a counter, the receptionist in a bun gives them a big X sign with her arms, leaving Toa looking pretty defeated. It turns out their luck is terrible, as every receptionist in town tells them no until the whole map is covered in X marks, showing that every room is full. Toa looks pretty stressed as he tells the group they finally found a place with one room available, but there is a bit of a problem. Nika is actually impressed, saying it is amazing that every single place in town is fully booked. The group talks about how this is a town with lots of people and a key trade hub, meaning there are probably more travelers here than locals, and since finding an inn took until after dark, their shopping will have to wait until tomorrow. Toa admits that just getting one room is what you would call a stroke of luck, but he can't help noticing there is only one bed. He tells the two girls to take the bed while he sleeps on the sofa, even saying he is fine with sleeping outside if it comes to that. Nika looks at him completely confused and asks what he is even talking about. Nika tells Toa he is the most tired one, so he should use the bed, and the short-haired girl agrees, saying it is big enough for the three of them to squeeze in and use it together. Toa gets a bit flustered and tells them that young ladies should not say things like that. Nika just laughs at him, asking what that was all about, and teasing him that he sounds just like a dad. Toa realizes that since he is a reincarnated person, adding the years from his past life would actually make him around a father's age. He tells the two of them to go to bed first, while he organizes their luggage, adding that if the bed is free later, he will just borrow the edge of it. The girls agree with a happy okay, as the group finally settles in for the night. Toa takes a look at his various magic stones and potion supplies, checking over his ingredients for healing potions, and humming to himself as he thinks. He realizes they are short on healing potion reserves, so he tells himself he will have to procure the ingredients somewhere and make them. Looking closely at his gear, Toa thinks that the magic stones he has are just so-so, I guess. But then, something catches his attention, and he wonders, as he stops what he is doing. It sounds like some kind of commotion is going on outside. So Toa looks out the window and asks himself what that could be. He spots Nika being followed and realizes that the guys chasing her are definitely no vigilante corps or anything official. Toa watches from behind the window bars and realizes with a start that these people are actual kidnappers. Nika desperately sprints through the narrow streets, while two of the hooded thugs stay right on her heels. She suddenly stops in her tracks, her eyes wide with total shock as she sees what is ahead. It turns out she has run straight into a dead end, leaving her with absolutely nowhere left to hide. One of the men looms over her and laughs, mocking her by asking if she has finally calmed down. He tells her that as long as she is alive, he is fine, and then he says he will just crush her legs to make sure she cannot run again. The lead kidnapper with the eye patch and thick beard grins alongside his partner, thinking they finally have their prize trapped. Nika is completely speechless and begins to cry as she watches several hands reach out to grab her. Suddenly, Toa drops out of the sky with a massive impact, slamming into the earth and creating a huge cloud of dust right in front of her. Standing in the middle of the mess, Toa lets out a long sigh and mutters, "Good grief," about the whole situation. Nika looks up at him with big, watery eyes, clearly shocked that someone actually came to her rescue. Toa smirks to himself and thinks that this really isn't the right time for him to be sticking his nose into other people's things. Toa stands his ground as one of the small henchmen looks up at him in total shock, trailing off as he realizes, "You're..." Ignoring the man for a moment, Toa looks back at Nika and asks her if she even knows who these guys are. The kidnapper tries to twist things around, questioning why Toa was even after the girl if he isn't one of them. Toa doesn't let the lie stand for even a second and firmly tells them that they are completely wrong. Getting really angry, the bearded kidnapper henchman yells at Toa to shut up and calls out his earth magic. Suddenly, a giant hand made of rock bursts out of the ground, but Toa is already on the move and ready to fight back with his sword. Toa easily slices through the giant stone hand and laughs about how it is so brittle. He wonders aloud if this is really the strength of mere thugs. Toa points out that they are the ones who started this. After all, the thugs scream in terror as Toa charges forward, telling them it is sheathed so they do not need to worry. He lands a massive hit he calls a dwarf home run and sends the bearded kidnapper henchman flying. Within seconds, the kidnappers are all knocked out and piled on top of each other while Toa looks on, completely unbothered. Toa realizes that there was another one watching them from the shadows. He looks toward the darkness and reacts with shock as the final person disappears. Toa is completely stunned and wonders if the guy really vanished in an instant. He asks himself if that was teleportation magic, but then thinks it must be a large-scale ritual and definitely not something mere thugs could use. While Toa is thinking about the mysterious escape, Nika tentatively tries to get his attention by saying, Nika stands there looking very nervous with her hands clasped together, waiting for him to speak. Nika looks up at Toa with tears in her eyes and starts to say thank you for saving her. But out of nowhere, the bearded kidnapper lunges out to grab Nika and shouts that he has finally got her. Toa immediately reaches out and tells the man to wait as he tries to stop the grab. Suddenly, the bearded kidnapper looks completely stunned and lets out a confused, "Huh?" as if something went wrong. Watching from the darkness, a shadowed figure with a creepy smile, seems to be enjoying the chaos. Then, a mysterious voice rings out from the void, saying that they are truly sorry for what is happening. Toa looks over at the girl he just rescued and asks if she is hurt. The girl stammers that she is fine, while standing near the defeated guy on the ground. She introduces herself once again as Cheki and thanks Toa so much for saving her. Toa gives her his name and tells her she doesn't need to worry about it. But Toa gets a serious look on his face as he thinks back to that last dwarf. He wonders what on earth was going on with that guy vanishing and appearing so suddenly. Toa looks down at a gap in the ground and realizes he has finally found something. He peers into a narrow opening in the rocks and asks himself if it is an underground passage. Toa realizes the kidnappers must have fled into this spot and wonders if it really is an underground passage. Toa gets a light ready and says they should go in, which leaves Cheki feeling pretty confused. He tells her he will widen the entrance with earth magic, and the ground starts to break apart instantly. Toa jumps right down into the dark cave, and Cheki follows him to see what is waiting for them. Toa looks at the path and says it looks like a mine tunnel that doesn't seem naturally formed. He thinks about how when you mention dwarves and tunnels, they usually go hand in hand. He peers deeper into the dark, carved-out entrance of the cave. This reminds him that among the masters at the fort, there was a dwarf named Rishu. He remembers Rishu explaining how for generations, the dwarven people have dug holes across the continent to gather ore. Rishu says they are born with an obsession for making things and must create, because without creation, there is no meaning to life. Rishu explains how their creative drive, which defines who they are, has continued to consume the whole continent. He says they continued to build paths like an ant nest, leading to exactly what Toa is looking at. It turns out this type of construction is what they call a mole's side tunnel. Toa touches the wall and says it's his first time seeing the real thing, wondering if the whole place was really dug by hand. Cheki tries to get his attention, and Toa snaps back to reality and says sorry to her for being so distracted. Cheki explains she's going to chase after the rest of them, but asks what he'll do, which catches him off guard. Toa asks the child if they would feel better seeing the group properly caught, and promises that since he's strong, it'll be over in a flash. The child in the hat giggles and clarifies that they aren't trying to hit on him or anything. After a quiet moment of staring, Toa says, "Well then," and asks them to please let him come along. As they start walking, the child asks if this is an underground passage, and mentions they never knew the kingdom had a place like this. Toa tells them no, and explains that this is actually a tunnel the dwarves dug out for themselves. Toa realizes that dwarves traveling the country freely, without passing through checkpoints, is a huge problem, and admits that is exactly what he was thinking. The child in the hat mentions the dwarves, catching Toa's attention as they walk. Looking at Toa, she thinks he looks like an ordinary boy who was probably just targeted by chance. She says she'll catch those dwarves quickly and just dump them in front of the guard station, since involving the military police would stand out too much. Toa realizes that's probably for the best, since he's basically a wanted man himself. The child in the hat points the way as they keep walking, until Toa suddenly looks alert when he senses something nearby. Just as the dwarf with the eye patch says they've made it this far, the dwarf with the braided beard spots the intruders and gasps in surprise. Toa pops out of the shadows with a creepy look and lets the dwarves know he finally found them. Before they can even move, Toa shouts out for his binding magic to trap the dwarf with the braided beard and pin him to the ground. With the targets tied up, Toa drags the two dwarves along the floor, while the child in the hat walks right next to him. As the child in the hat realizes he actually came back, Toa dusts his hands off and says that should do it, since he plans to deliver these guys as a present to the military police. The child in the hat bows low to thank him for everything and says she is really sorry for causing him so much trouble. Toa just gives her a warm smile and tells her it's fine, since he basically just stuck his nose in where it didn't belong anyway. Toa smiles and tells the girl that getting targeted by kidnappers means she really has bad luck. The child in the cap stands there in silence for a moment, looking a bit overwhelmed. Toa is surprised and tries to check on her, but she just tips her hat with a smile and insists she's fine since it was just bad luck. She thanks him very much and bows, apologizing because she can't even offer him a proper thanks for his help. As she turns to leave, Toa just watches her walk away with a quiet look on his face. With the rescue over, the two of them head off in different directions through the quiet city streets. The child in the cap starts walking away into the distance, leaving Toa behind. Watching her go from a roof, Toa asks for her forgiveness and tells her to just think of it as insurance, as he prepares some tracking magic. The magic attaches to her back with a soft puff, letting him keep an eye on her without her even knowing. Meanwhile, the three kidnappers are left tied up in a bunch as a little gift right in front of the military police station. With the job finished, Toa quietly makes his way to a nearby window. He gives a quick hup as he hops back inside, finally heading in for the night. Toa gets the shock of his life when he's suddenly spotted sneaking back in, letting out a surprised shout. Brasa is standing right there holding a lantern, asking if he enjoyed his nighttime stroll, while a stunned Toa can only shout her name. Really flustered, he can't believe it, and asks her if she actually wasn't asleep this whole time. Brasa explains that she was definitely asleep at first, but she woke up the second she noticed Toa was gone. Then Nika pops her head out to ask where he went, mentioning she can sense magic power and knows his trip wasn't just a simple walk. With both of them staring him down, Toa can only manage a weak and nervous response as he tries to find a way out of this. The red-haired woman pinches Toa's ear while lecturing him about not doing dangerous things alone anymore, making him cry out in pain. The blonde girl looks worried and asks if that kid, Cheki, is going to be okay. She wonders why a kid like him would be getting chased in the first place. As they sit together, she mentions that he looked like a totally ordinary boy, and the group just lets out a small sigh. Toa gets a serious look on his face and starts to say that there is just something more to it. Elsewhere, Cheki, the boy in the cap, looks completely shocked by whatever just happened. Out of nowhere, two tall men with horns corner the boy, and one says he has finally found him, calling him Recheki Eldoa-sama. While a voice wonders what the goal of these suspicious men is, one of them snaps that they are wasting his time. The man with two horns tells his partner to wait, while the other one carries Cheki over his shoulder. The single-horned man asks what the holdup is and tells him to just get to the master already. The two-horned man leans in close and says the boy stinks, because he smells a different kind of magic on him. He thinks about it for a second and suggests that the kid might be under some kind of spell. The single-horned man says that hand is creepy and tells it to cut it out, asking in surprise if it is actually magic. Wand lets out a "humph" and admits that he has never seen anything like this before. He notes that it is a complex formula and says this definitely wasn't cast by a dwarf. The single-horned man tells Wand that he has a good nose, just like he expected. Wand says he can't dispel it and thinks it wouldn't be good to trouble Lord Ruchimata with it either. He decides they should just kill the caster instead and tells the group to follow the scent of the magic. Wand gives the okay and tells the others to take those two to Lord Ruchimata first. A hand with sharp nails reaches down to activate a glowing geometric symbol on a stone surface. The group flies off into the night, talking about killing him quickly so they can head back and grab parfaits, though one of them grumbles about what a pain it all is. Later, Checky explains that the person just looked like an ordinary boy, but then he quickly says it is nothing. Even though he says it is nothing, he admits there was something kind of lonely about the boy. The red-haired woman repeats the word lonely and thinks that is an odd impression to have, while Checky tries to figure out the right way to put it. The red-haired woman asks what is wrong, as Checky lets out a confused sound. The spiky-haired boy looks worried and says he just sensed something strange. Wand shouts for everyone to get down, as he suddenly drops in and says he finally found them. A hexagonal shield appears, as the spiky-haired boy steps in front of Checky and the red-haired woman to protect them. The spiky-haired boy's eyes widen as he sees a horn on his forehead and asks himself if the man is a demon. Wand looks annoyed and asks what the hell is going on, since his target is just a human. Wand peers down from the opening in the ceiling and asks if Checky is really the guy they are after. Checky grips his sword as a magical circle suddenly shatters into pieces right in front of him. The big-nosed demon confirms there is no doubt about it, since he can smell the same scent as that magic. Wand says all right then, and tells Checky to die as he launches a powerful strike. The impact creates a massive explosion that sends debris flying everywhere. Wand is left looking completely stunned and confused, wondering what just happened. Checky stands his ground with his weapons ready and says that is quite a greeting. The red-haired woman gets scared seeing the newcomers and asks who they are and why they have horns. Wand looks at the scene and tells his partner he held back too much, which let Checky block the hit. The big-nosed demon looks annoyed and tries to explain that he is telling Wand he did not hold back. Holding his sword tight, Checky starts wondering why a demon would even be here in the kingdom. Checky glares at his attackers and asks who they are, since he does not recall giving them any reason to mess with him. The white-haired demon tells Checky not to play dumb and asks if he cast some unnecessary spell on that girl. Checky is caught off guard as he wonders about that girl and thinks it can't be possible, but he can't help feeling that something is wrong. While Checky stands his ground in the middle of a crater, the blonde woman yells out to ask what they did to Checky. The big-nosed demon lies flat on the ground and asks if he really has any obligation to answer the question. Checky points his blade right at the demon's throat and firmly tells him that he actually does. The big-nosed demon starts to sweat as a loud toot sound suddenly goes off out of nowhere. Checky keeps his eyes locked on the enemy, staying completely focused as the battle heats up. The big-nosed demon grunts in frustration and complains that the situation is half-baked. He lets out a loud shout ending in "raw" as he tries to force his way through. The big-nosed demon looks back with a look of pure rage and calls Checky a jerk. Suddenly, the big-nosed demon is caught completely off guard when he gets hit from behind. The blonde woman swings her staff and tells the demons that they really shouldn't forget about her. As the group gets ready to fight, the red-haired warrior tells the guy not to go rampaging on his own. The light-haired protagonist thinks about how this is his first time fighting a demon, but he doesn't let that slow him down. He moves in with a powerful strike, sending dark blood spraying out into the air. Looking at the damage he caused, he realizes that these monsters cut just the same as humans do. He remembers that demons are just a minority race from the Northwest, but that is all the info he has, since he never dealt with them at the fort. With a serious look in his eyes, he tells the enemy to answer him and asks what they did to Checky. The horn-eared demon is pinned down and realizes this guy is bad news, asking if the light-haired protagonist is even really a human. He looks completely stunned as he stares up in total shock. He panics and mentions someone named Lord Ruchimata, saying it is not time yet, while the light-haired protagonist watches him closely. Realizing what is about to happen, the light-haired protagonist wonders if the demon is actually going to self-destruct right then and there. He yells for him to wait, but a massive explosion goes off, forcing him to jump back for cover. Seeing the blast, the red-haired warrior and the blonde mage are left completely shocked by the sudden turn of events. As they start moving fast, the light-haired protagonist grabs his companions and warns both of them not to bite their tongues. He stays focused on their escape, saying that anyway, they need to get away from there right now. He holds the red-haired warrior and the blonde mage close to him as he pulls them through the air to get clear of the danger. Looking back at the chaos, he can't help but feel like this whole situation has turned into a real mess.